Hey guys, tonight we drift into the damp cobbled alleys of a medieval town, where the fog clings low and the morning bells toll a bit too early for your liking. You're about to step into a pair of shoes that no one envies, thick-soled, blood-stained, and half-rotten because today, you begin your first day as the assistant to the town executioner. The sky is still dark, that peculiar blue-gray just before dawn, when even the crows haven't decided if they're awake. You jolt upright on a straw-stuffed mattress, cloaked in the itchy scent of mildew and regret. Above you, wooden beams groan as though they, too, resent this hour. Your stomach is a pit of sour nerves, and not just from the questionable stew you ate last night. No, it's the realization that in just a few hours, you'll be face to face with a man who will die because someone told you both to be there. And spoiler, you're not just watching. You're participating. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere far, far from medieval England, drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you all listen from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You swing your legs over the side of the bed. The stone floor is colder than you'd like, and your worn boots greet you with the soft crunch of straw and something else. You don't investigate. The town chapel bell tolls once, low and heavy. One of those sounds that vibrates more in your chest than your ears. It's your signal. You fumble into your thick wool tunic, brown, scratchy, likely unwashed for a month, and throw a cloak over your shoulders. It doesn't warm you so much as trap the chill in new places. As you step outside into the misty silence, you can already feel the air shift. The kind of shift that says, something ugly is coming. No one else is out this early, except for the bread makers. Boy, who barely glances at you. His dog barks in your direction, and that's more acknowledgement than you're used to. People don't speak to the executioner's assistant unless they have to. Not because they're scared of you, but because they don't want whatever moral stain is attached to your job to rub off. You make your way toward the square, boots squelching in last night's rain. It's still hours before the crowd gathers, but your boss wants everything ready before the sun breaks through the mist. The square is deathly quiet, aside from the occasional creak of a weather-worn sign or the flutter of a pigeon that always seems to roost on the pillory. The execution block stands in the center, like some oversized wooden altar, stained with years of work. The chopping platform has been scrubbed, but the ghosts of past mornings still linger in the warped grain of the wood. If you squint, you can almost see them. A countess once accused of poisoning, a thief who refused the priest, a boy not much older than you. You glance at the block and think, just for a heartbeat, what it would feel like to rest your own head there. Not out of fear, oddly, but because it feels like that's the path you're already shuffling down, and what's one step faster? You shake the thought away, startled at its clarity. Historians still argue whether assistants were volunteers, conscripts, or simply those too poor to say no. You know which one you are. You needed coin. You didn't have a trade. And one day, the town's hulking executioner, who everyone calls Red Giles, though no one knows why, clapped you on the back and said, "You're strong. You'll do." You didn't say no. You never did. In the east, the sky begins to shift from deep indigo to bruised purple. You know your morning has officially started when the rooks begin to squabble over the roofs. Like drunk philosophers, you gather the cleaning cloths from under the platform, still damp from the last rinse. They smell like iron and vinegar, the combination of blood and whatever they use to sanitize things around here. You toss them into the trough to soak again. Later, you'll wring them out, hang them to dry, and pray the smell fades enough to sleep near. There's a schedule taped well, nailed to the wooden post in the corner. Today's execution is scheduled for the 5th hour after dawn, which gives you a small window to prepare. The name listed is unfamiliar, but that means nothing. You've learned not to ask what they did. Whether it was sheep theft, heresy, or offending the wrong noble's daughter, the end result is always the same dot. The wind picks up slightly and carries with it the scent of smoke from a baker's chimney, mingled with the musk of wet wool and the acidic memory of the last death. You breathe it all in, not because you want to, but because today you'll be breathing much worse. That still, you can't help but feel it, just beneath the anxiety, a strange, sharp alertness. Like your senses have turned up their volume. Maybe it's adrenaline. Maybe it's dread. Maybe it's your body trying to warn you that it wants to be anywhere else but here. But here you are. And this is only the beginning. You shuffle toward the square's edge, where the morning light hasn't quite reached. The stones are slick from mist, and every step feels like a negotiation with gravity. There's a rhythm to your morning now unwelcome, but familiar. First the cleaning, then the fetching, then the waiting. And in between, you try not to make eye contact with anyone. Not that many people want to make eye contact with you. You're not famous, exactly, but people know. They whisper it. They move out of your way in the market. And when children ask what you do, their parents mutter, "Don't point," and cross the street. Being the assistant to the executioner isn't just about helping end lives, it's about erasing parts of your own. You can't talk to bakers anymore. They won't serve you the good crusts. The innkeeper pretends not to see you unless you're the last customer. Even the town cats avoid you. One hissed yesterday when you reached to scratch its chin. Rude, but fair. You reach the executioner's shed, a leaning timber shack that smells like damp rope and old onions. It's where Red Giles stores the gear, the axes, the ropes, the masks. He doesn't live here, but he naps in the back when drunk, which is often. You knock once, not really expecting an answer, and push open the creaky door. There he is, sitting on an overturned barrel, shirt off, boots half-laced, drinking something brown from a dented mug. His beard is braided in the front, a style he claims comes from old German bloodlines, though most suspect it's just to hide the burn scar on his chin. His belly is massive and pale, and covered in what appears to be flour. Or maybe bone dust. You don't ask. "Mornin', worm," he grunts, not looking up. "Morning, sir," you reply quietly, not correcting the insult. He tosses you a rag. It's damp and sticky. Axe needs polishing. Blades blunt. Don't want. Another two-stroke mess like Tuesday. You nod. Tuesday's execution had gone poorly. Giles missed the mark barely, but enough. The crowd gasped. The body convulsed. You had to finish the job with a secondary swing, while the priest turned away and the vendor selling meat pies shouted, "Discounts for trauma." You haven't eaten since. You find the blade propped in the corner. It's heavier than you remembered, but your arms are getting stronger. That's a fun thing to tell yourself. Progress. As you begin to clean the axe, rubbing away what Giles calls the sticky bits, you notice a chip near the edge. Not big, but enough to cause a problem. You mention it. Giles shrugs. Still cuts. Don't be soft. You know what they called. The last soft assistant. You shake your head. Dead. Good one, Giles. Classic dot. You get to work with a whetstone. Hands already raw from the chill. The rhythmic scrape of metal on stone is oddly soothing, like sharpening away your identity. Each pass makes the edge gleam a bit more. You wonder how many necks it's kissed. Historians still argue whether assistants were responsible for blade maintenance or if it was reserved for the executioner himself. You can confirm, at least in your case, it's 100% your job. Along with cleaning, carrying, and other glamorous tasks like holding the screaming part still. Your thoughts are interrupted by a loud belch. Giles stands and stretches his joints, cracking like a broken cartwheel. He walks over, inspects your work, and grunts his approval. Then he scratches somewhere unspeakable and hands you a splintered bucket. Go fetch water. From the far well, not the near one. That one's full of frog spawn. You nod again. You've learned not to question anything that man says. If he told you the moon was made of goat cheese and sins, you'd simply say, "Yes, sir." You step back outside. The morning has crept forward, lighting the buildings with a gray softness. Chimney smoke curls lazily upward, and the smell of baking bread almost tricks you into thinking you live a normal life. You don't, but the illusion is nice. The far well is by the tanner's shop, which means you'll be gagging all the way. There, you pass the market stalls, still setting up. The fruit seller barely nods in your direction. The fishmonger pretends to sort eels, even though they're clearly all dead. A chicken crosses your path. You consider asking it where it's going, just for the conversation. At the well, you drop the bucket and begin hauling. The rope groans, old and fraying, probably like your nerves. The water smells metallic, perfect for cleaning the tools of death. You carry it back slowly, your arms straining. The townspeople don't meet your eyes. A little boy sticks his tongue out and mimics a hanging. His mother smacks him and whispers something in his ear. Probably something like, "He touches the cursed things. Don't even look at him or your teeth'll fall out." You finally return, placing the water near the block. Giles gives you a nod that, in his language, translates to, "Not bad, human mule." You catch your breath. The bell rings again, louder this time. It's closer to execution hour. Giles pulls out the long leather strap you'll need later and starts oiling it. The smell of animal fat is overwhelming. You try not to think about where it came from. The sun now spills full onto the square, making the wooden block gleam in ways it shouldn't. You lean against the stone wall, watching the shadows shrink. You know what's next. You'll be mopping again soon, and worse. But for now, there's quiet. A pigeon lands nearby. It coos once, and walks in a circle. Then it poops directly onto your boot. Perfect. The sun creeps higher, and with it, the town begins to stir properly, this time. Not just merchants and servants. No, now it's the nosy ones, the gossipers, the eager. Those who show up early for blood and call it civic duty. You feel their eyes on you long before you see them. They gather at the edge of the square, behind the rope you helped string up last week, gossiping in low tones and trying not to look too interested. It never works. They're absolutely interested. An old woman points at the chopping block and murmurs something to her neighbor, probably estimating how many blows it'll take today, or how many times you'll mess it up. A teenage boy with unruly curls makes exaggerated slashing gestures with a wooden spoon. His friends laugh. You wonder how many of them will end up in this square for real one day. Behind you, the shed creaks open again. Giles emerges in full work garb, a thick, greasy tunic over his belly, boots laced halfway up swollen calves, and his infamous red hood slung over one shoulder like a fashion statement. He smells of stale ale, turnip, and something vaguely metallic. "Time to collect our guest," he says, stretching his back until it sounds like firewood snapping. Try not to look sad. This time, you're not the one losing your head. You manage a weak nod and follow him. Your feet drag, each step heavier than it should be. You've made this walk before, but it never gets easier. It's not the path, it's the door at the end. The thick iron-banded oak door of the holding cell. The prison is built into the back of the courthouse, half underground, half forgotten. The walls sweat even in winter. It always smells like mildew and despair. Inside, torchlight dances across stone, and you can hear the soft murmur of prayers. Or curses. It's hard to tell in this place. The warden, a squat man named Ulrich, greets you with a yawn. He's wearing a key ring the size of a toddler and eating something that smells disturbingly like horse. "Ah," he says, smacking his lips, "the gentlemen of dignity arrive." He chuckles at his own joke. You don't. Ulrich unlocks the cell. And there he is, the condemned. He's not what you expected. He never is. You've seen blubbering thieves, stone-faced rebels, weeping mothers. But today's prisoner is humming. He sits on the stone bench like it's a pew, hands clasped politely in his lap, eyes half closed. His clothes are threadbare but clean, and someone, perhaps himself, has tied his hair back with a bit of string, mourning. He says, opening one eye, "Is it raining?" You blink. No. Pity. I like the smell of rain. Giles snorts. You'll smell plenty of things soon enough. You move forward to bind the prisoner's hands, as is your role. Your fingers tremble slightly. The rope is coarse and rough, the kind you pre-cut last night. He doesn't resist. In fact, he holds out his wrists like he's offering a gift. "What's your name?" he asks. As you tighten the knot, you hesitate. "Not important." He smiles. Faintly. "Well, not important. Thank you for being gentle." You look away. You always look away. Eye contact makes it worse. You once made the mistake of locking eyes with a condemned youth your age, and for weeks you dreamed of nothing else. He'd said, "Please," over and over. You haven't forgotten. Historians still argue whether condemned prisoners were treated with dignity before execution or merely processed like livestock. Based on your experience, it depends entirely on how much bread Ulrich had that morning and whether Giles was hung over today. Strangely, there's civility in the air. Or maybe just that unsettling calm that comes before something breaks. You and Giles lead the man through the back corridor, his footsteps quiet, even graceful. He hums again, some hymn you can't name. You wonder if it comforts him or just fills. The silence as you reach the edge of the square. The murmur of the crowd thickens. Whispers ripple like wind through leaves. You can feel them noticing the prisoner, measuring him, judging him, writing imaginary crimes in their heads. Giles mutters, "Showtime," and nudges you forward. You tighten your grip on the rope and try not to trip over your own feet. The platform looms ahead, slick from dew and dread. The block gleams. Your stomach, DOESN, single quotes to dot. You guide the prisoner up the steps. He glances at the crowd and sighs softly, like someone watching a long-forgotten town he once called home. You'd think. He murmurs, they'd be quieter for this sort of thing. Giles chuckles. Wait till they start throwing cabbages. You place the prisoner beside the block, but don't force him down. That part comes later. For now, he kneels of his own accord. The priest arrives shortly after, robes trailing, muttering. Words that sound less like prayers and more like contractual obligations. You step back as he begins, hands folded behind your back. You scan the crowd again. Familiar faces. Some come to every execution, like it's part of their routine. A few are visibly excited. One man actually brought a small stool and then, near the back, you see a girl, no older than 10, perched on her father's shoulders, clutching a bread roll. Her eyes are wide, curious, unblinking. You feel something tighten in your chest. She reminds you of your sister. Or maybe yourself. Back when the world made sense. You return your gaze to the man before you. He's not humming anymore. He's still, waiting. The bell tolls again. Loud. Final. Giles steps forward and lifts his hood. The red cloth settles over his face like a curtain dropping before the final act. You feel a hand on your shoulder his. You ready the block, he says. I'll handle the swing. You nod. You kneel. You breathe. You adjust the man's collar. He flinches only slightly. You whisper something you hope is comforting, though you don't remember what it is. The priest backs away. The crowd leans in. The man closes his eyes. And then, well, that part's not yours. Not yet. The air stills in the seconds before the blade falls. The pigeons stop cooing. The crowd holds its breath. Even the wind seems to hesitate, as though it, too, doesn't want to witness what's about to happen. Then comes the sound. It's not what you'd expect. No dramatic metallic clang or theatrical thunderclap. Just a thick, wet thunk like an overripe melon dropped onto a chopping board. You feel the vibration travel through the wood beneath your knees. The crowd exhales all at once. Someone cheers. Someone else vomits. A pie seller bellows, hot. Lamb, still warm. Because capitalism never sleeps, you do your best not to look. You fail. The body slumps forward, twitching once before stilling. The head, for a breathless second, seems confused by the separation mouth slightly open, eyes fluttering closed. Historians still argue whether post-decapitation awareness is real, whether the brain lives on for those final haunting moments. You sincerely hope not. Giles grunts with effort as he lifts the axe again, not to strike, but to wipe the blood against a sackcloth nailed to the edge of the stage. He does it casually, like someone cleaning mud from their boots. Clean it, he mutters, fast, before it cakes. You reach for the cloths by the trough, now soaked and rust-colored. Your hands move automatically wipe, rinse, wring, repeat. The blood's warm and your stomach turns, but you don't show it. Giles hates that. The worst part is the smell. Not just the metallic tang of blood, but something deeper, like old pennies left in a damp cellar, mingled with bile and fear. The priest is already gone. He never stays long. Just enough to mumble the rites and disappear before the real mess starts. The crowd begins to stir now that the main event is over. A few linger, hoping for a bonus show, maybe the body twitching again, or a fight over who gets the prisoner's shoes. A child tugs at your sleeve and asks, "Can I touch it?" You don't answer. One cabbage sails through the air and smacks the block with a splat. Giles laughs. "Still warm enough to roast," he says. You're unsure whether he means the vegetable or the head. You kneel and begin the grim work of lifting. What's left? You've got to be careful. Dropping the head is frowned upon. There's already a town rhyme about the last assistant. Who did that? You place it gently into the burlap sack meant for such things. Someone tried to embroider a skull on it once, but the thread came loose. Now it just looks like a sad potato with a frown. The body goes onto a cart, old, wooden, and rickety. You and Giles each take a side and heave it off the platform. It lands with a soft thud. You adjust the limbs so they don't dangle. It's harder when they're still warm. You pull the cart toward the edge of town where the burial pits are. It's not your favorite walk. Too long, too quiet, and often accompanied by curious dogs. Today, it's just you and Giles. He whistles tunelessly while you trudge. The wheels creak. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows fashionably late. Nice clean swing, Giles says eventually, like a teacher grading himself. Didn't hit spine. That's the trick. Once you hit bone, you're in the weeds. You nod, because what else do you say to that? Great job on the murder, boss? He turns to you. You tied his wrists better today, neater. Keep that up, and I might let you prep the next rope. You fight the urge to say, "Gee, thanks," and instead just grunt in vague gratitude. It's a promotion in his world. As you reach the burial grounds, the sun's higher now. The air smells fresher, though faintly scorched. Someone nearby is burning off dung. The gravedigger is already waiting, leaning on his spade like it owes him money. "Back again," he mutters. You lot keep me busy. No one ever retires in your line of work, Giles replies. The two share a laugh. You don't join in. The pit's already open dug that morning. You and the digger slide the body in. The sack follows. You don't look inside. That part gets easier, but not today. You shovel the dirt back slowly, trying to avoid splashing. Your boots. It never works. Your hands sting from blisters you stopped bandaging a week ago. The job done, you turn back toward town. Giles lights a pipe and walks ahead, humming. You follow behind, numb. Halfway back, you pass the place where someone's carved a crude message into the stone wall. Justice is not mercy. You've passed it a dozen times. But today, the words seem louder. Back in the square, the crowd's mostly gone. A few vendors still linger, trying to sell leftover pie or roasted chestnuts. Children chase each other around the pillory. You begin washing the block again. The blood's begun to dry. It clings stubbornly. You scrub harder. Giles watches you. For a moment, then grunts. "Lunch," he says, and ambles off toward the tavern. You stay behind. Not because you want to, but because there's more to clean. Always more. You wring out the cloth, watching the red swirl through the water like ink in a storm. You wonder quietly, to yourself, how long you'll last in this role. Not physically, mentally, spiritually. There's no training for that part. You eat alone. That's part of the routine now. Lunch is served on a splintery bench behind the tool shed, where the smell of iron and vinegar seeps into your bread like a bad seasoning. Today's meal is a heel of stale rye, 2 pickled onions, and a wooden cup of thin ale that tastes like someone whispered the word hops at it from across the village. You chew mechanically, watching ants swarm a grease spot on the ground beside you. Even they seem more enthusiastic about their meal once. In a while, you hear footsteps past the other side of the shed, people avoiding the square but still peeking to see if the show is really over. No one talks to you. That's the unspoken rule. The assistant eats alone. You look up just in time to see Giles exit the tavern with a drumstick in one hand and a half-eaten turnip in the other. He nods at you with what might be approval or indigestion. Hard to tell. Squire, he calls, using the nickname he gives you when he's in a generous mood. Stocks are splitting again. Go hammer 'em straight. You set your cup down, wipe your hands on your tunic, already stained, and make your way toward the pillory. The wooden stocks, those infamous 3-holed contraptions used for public shaming, have seen better days. The left hinge is rusted, and one plank has cracked through the middle. Yesterday, someone's head got stuck, and it took 2 people and a bit of butter to get them out. You've now been given the honor of maintenance. The hammer is where you left it, under the vendor's cart that always smells like spoiled plums. You collect some nails and get to work, hammering carefully to avoid drawing attention, which, of course, fails immediately. A cluster of boys notices you and starts mimicking you, slapping their hands together and pretending to cry, "No, please." "I didn't steal the turnips," followed by exaggerated sobs. One of them pretends to faint dramatically. His friends collapse in laughter. You keep hammering. Historians still argue whether stocks were primarily for punishment or public humiliation, but really, wasn't it always both? Especially when some clever baker's apprentice would shove stale crusts in your ears while you couldn't move. The boys scatter when a woman approaches, swatting at them with her apron and glaring at you like you encouraged the behavior. You finish the repairs without further interruption. One of the hinges squeaks now, but that's tomorrow's problem. The sun's climbing toward its zenith, and the square's emptying. With the execution over, life resumes. Couples stroll. Merchants shout half-heartedly about end-of-day discounts. The woman who sells apples is already hauling her cart home, muttering about bad air and too much blood. You crouch and retrieve a stray piece of rope near the gallows. It's frayed, red-streaked. You shove it into your apron pocket. The town cat approaches scruffy, orange, missing half a tail. You reach out, and for once, it doesn't flee. It simply looks at you for a moment, then sniffs the air and walks away. That's probably the closest thing to friendship you're getting today. You sit down on the edge of the platform, not caring if anyone sees. Your back aches. Your hands sting. The bloodstains on your sleeves are drying, cracking like old paint. You flex your fingers. They don't feel like yours anymore. A low whistle breaks your thoughts. It's Giles again, approaching with a fresh mug of something frothy and suspiciously green. He plops down beside you, wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, and sighs contentedly. "Not a bad chop," he says, as if recapping a good game. "Crowd was decent. Only 2 thrown things. I've had worse." You nod. You're not sure if he expects agreement or admiration. He glances at you, then reaches into his pouch and pulls out a dried apple slice. "Here," he says, tossing it to you. Bit of sugar helps the shakes. You catch it clumsily. It's leathery and has a suspicious dark patch on one side, but you chew anyway. He's right. The sweetness hits hard and fast, and something in your chest loosens. Maybe your soul. Hard to say. You know, he says, sipping from his mug. I didn't want this job either. You blink. That's unexpected. Giles doesn't usually do personal. I was a wheelwright's apprentice. Good at it too. But then my master got caught skimming taxes. Guess who they needed to fill the towns? A vacancy? You glance at his hands, huge, calloused, cracked. Not the kind you imagine delicately shaping wagon wheels. Figured. It was better than starving, he finishes. Still is. You nod again. You get it more than you want to admit. Maybe you'd be a baker if your father hadn't died. Maybe you'd be a monk if you didn't snore so loudly. Maybe you'd be anything but this. A silence stretches between you, not unpleasant. Just ... heavy ... Then he stands and stretches, groaning. Breaks over. Don't forget the gibbet. Raven's been at it again. You sigh. The gibbet. Of course. The gibbet cage swings on the outskirts of town, hung from a post, creaking ominously whenever wind passes through. Sometimes it holds a corpse, sometimes just bones. It's meant as a warning, though to who no one remembers. And your job, chase off the birds. Tighten the ropes. Wipe off anything too drippy. You walk slowly. Your legs protest. The apple slice churns in your belly like it's debating its life choices. As you near the gibbet. The smell hits you before the sight does. Something between sour meat and wet wool. And yes, there they are. 3 fat ravens perched on the top, pecking at what used to be someone's elbow. Shoo, you say, waving your arms. Go haunt someone else's afternoon. One of them squawks indignantly. The others remain until you throw a small rock, at which point they flap away like you've deeply offended them. Maybe you have. You tighten the ropes, wipe the worst of it with a dirty cloth, and tie off a loose ankle bone that's been dangling for days. There's no dignity here. Not for the dead. Not for you. You return to the square just as the sun begins its slow descent. Your shadow stretches long across the stone. You stop and look at it. It looks tall, sturdy, like someone with purpose. You don't feel tall. You don't feel sturdy, but you keep walking anyway. You return to the square just as the bells chime softly from the chapel tower. Not a funeral toll this time, just the afternoon quarter. Still, every ring feels a little personal. Giles is nowhere to be seen. Probably snoring into a trench of mutton back in the tavern. You're alone again, and that's when you remember what comes next. The body from this morning. It didn't just disappear. You still have to scrub the block. Not the surface under it. Most townsfolk assume the block is cleaned after every execution. Sure, the top gets a few swipes, maybe a bit of sand sprinkled on it, but underneath, where the blood runs down the groove and pools in the wood, that's your job. You lift the plank carefully, trying not to gag as the stench rises. It's thick, sweet, and wrong. The kind of smell that curls into your nostrils and clings. One whiff, and you suddenly understand why butchers always look slightly haunted. You grab a stiff bristled brush, the one missing half its bristles, and begin scrubbing. Bits of dried something flake off. You try not to wonder what they are. You fail. The mixture of old blood, wood rot, and vinegar fills your nose and mouth. You breathe through your teeth, which somehow makes it worse. You glance up, half expecting a small crowd to have it again. But no one watches the assistant. Clean. Only the act of dying draws an audience. What follows is just a mess. Historians still debate whether executioners and their aides were given private quarters near the gallows or forced to live on the fringes of town. In your case, it's both. You're allowed in town, technically. But you may as well sleep in a ditch. For how welcome you are. You keep scrubbing until the liquid dripping from your brush runs clearish. That's the best you're going to get. Your hands are raw. The pads of your fingers burn. There's a red streak on your forearm that you don't remember getting. When the last of the grime is washed down the drainstone narrow trench that runs through the square, you toss the brush aside and sit back on your heels. The sky has softened to late afternoon light, and the pigeons have returned, strutting around like they own the place. One pecks at a crust near your foot. You nudge it. Gently away, it comes back. Persistent little thing. As you stand, you catch sight of a merchant cart rumbling in from the east gate. It's draped in rough fabric, and the man driving it looks nervous. You don't think much of it until you see the guards behind him, 2 of them, fully armored. That's unusual. You squint, trying to catch their words, but they speak too low. The guards seem to be arguing with the merchant, then pointing toward the town hall. You hear only one sentence as they pass. ... Needs the block tomorrow. First light. Fantastic. Another one already. You sigh and stretch your back, every joint clicking like a chorus of regret. You gather your tools and carry them toward the shed. Inside, the air is warm, stale, and heavy with the smell of oiled leather. You begin putting things away: brush, sand, cloths, the small tin of lye that never quite closes right. You place the axe back in its corner, still gleaming faintly from this morning's polishing. Then you see it. The list. Giles keeps a crude board nailed to the wall, where he carves names and dates with the tip of a knife. Most are half erased, blurred by time or ale. But one name stands out, newly scratched, the lines still pale and raw. You trace it with your finger. The letters are clumsy, uneven. Whoever this is, they weren't important enough to get a full title. Just Lauren. You whisper it, softly, not because you knew them, but because you'll be the last person to say it. That's something, right? You close the shed door gently and step back into the cooling afternoon. You figure you have about an hour before night watch begins. That's the part of your job they didn't warn you about. Once the sun sets, it's your turn to guard the square. Why? Because people are weird. They steal things, not money, not produce. Body parts, teeth, bone, bits of the rope used for hanging. Some say they're for potions, others claim souvenirs. You don't ask questions anymore. You sit on the edge of the raised platform again and look out over the quieting town. There's a certain peace to this moment. Not joy, not rest. Just a pause. You hear a lute somewhere down the street, someone practicing a tune that keeps going off key. You spot a woman closing her shutters. A dog barks, and another answers in the distance. You close your eyes for just a second. The breeze brushes your cheek like a half-forgotten lullaby. And then you hear it. Clink. Followed by a whisper. You sit up fast. There, near the back of the square, a figure crouches beside the post. Something metallic glints in their hand. You rise. Slow and deliberate, your boots silent against the stone. You approach cautiously, heart thudding, and clear your throat. The figure freezes, then bolts. You chase. Not out of heroism, just obligation. If you let them get away, you'll hear about it all week. They duck between stalls, knocking over crate of dried fish. You follow, the stink nearly stopping you in your tracks. You catch up near the butcher's wall, grabbing the edge of their cloak and yanking hard. They tumble backward, landing with a wheeze. A teenage boy, barely older than you were when Giles first tapped you for this miserable trade. His hands tremble. In one, a rusted coin. In the other, a finger bone. Why? You ask, breathless. He looks at you with wild eyes. My father said it brings luck. If I bring it home, he'll let me stay. You stare at him for a long moment. Then you open your palm. Give it here. He hesitates, then hands it over. You drop the bone into your pouch, then wave him off. Go. He flees. You stand in the alley, breathing hard. The sky is darker now, purple bruising at the edges. You look down at the pouch. You don't know what's worse, that he wanted it, or that you understand. The stars begin to poke through the dusk like pinpricks in a velvet curtain. The bell hasn't rung for night yet, but the square has emptied itself of the curious, the hungry, and the idle. Now it belongs to shadows and to you. You walk back. Across the cobbles, boots scuffing against pebbles and dried leaves. You glance once over your shoulder, but the boy is long gone. Vanished into the alleys like all the others who only flirt with darkness, never marry it. You, on the other hand, are fully betrothed as you reach the execution platform again. You climb the steps without thinking. Your body knows the path. Kneel, reach, clean. It's muscle memory now, but you don't kneel. Not tonight. Instead, you sit on the edge of the block itself. Giles would grunt something disapproving if he saw something about respect, or posture, or splinters in the backside, but he's not here. It's just you, the night, and the faint smell of iron that never really goes away. You pull the bone from your pouch and hold it in your palm. It's small, clean, old. You wonder whose it was. Probably someone whose name never made it to the list. Some thief. Some beggar. Someone who didn't scream loud enough for the crowd to remember. There's a superstition you've heard before. Maybe from the priest. Maybe from your mother's stories about bones whispering in the dark. If you hold one to your ear, it'll tell you its story. You try. Just for a second. Nothing. Maybe you were hoping too hard. Or maybe it only works when you're the one who took the breath away. You tuck it away again. Out of sight, but not out of mind. A rustle breaks the silence. Not dramatic, just enough to make you look up. A dog noses through the trash at the far edge of the square, dragging a cabbage leaf through a puddle. You wave your hand. It ignores you. You envy that the night deepens, stretching longer than it should. The kind of slow time that makes shadows grow legs. You light one of the square's lanterns, then another. The flames sputter, reluctant. The oil stinks, but it's better than complete blackness. You walk the perimeter of the square, checking ropes, straightening signs, gently kicking over the stool someone left behind. Your job now is part watchman, part janitor, part haunting. Historians still argue whether execution assistants were paid nightly or just fed in exchange for their service. You've yet to see coin. But the stew yesterday had meat in it, so maybe that counts. Your feet ache, your shoulders throb. You pass the stocks and pause. There's something caught in the hinges strip of fabric, frayed and dirt-streaked. You pull it free and examine it. It's part of a sleeve. You try not to think about the arm that wore it, or the way it might have trembled, or the fact that tomorrow it could be yours. You tuck it into your belt and move on. The wind shifts, and with it comes the low groan of the gibbet cage. It swings in lazy rhythm, metal creaking like some forgotten song. You can't see it from here, but you picture it clearly. You always do. And then footsteps. Not loud, not fast, but steady. You duck behind the platform, your breath catching. You've learned that slow walkers at night rarely mean good news. A figure approaches, cloaked, hooded. The kind of silhouette that makes you wonder if it's real or just your nerves. Staging a shadow play. You remain still as the figure stops at the edge of the square. It stands there for a moment, then places something at the base of the chopping block. You squint. A bundle, wrapped in cloth. Then, without a word, it turns and vanishes into the alley behind the tavern. No sound, no trace, just gone. You wait a long moment before approaching. The bundle is tied with twine, neat but rushed. You crouch, fingers hesitating before touching it. Inside, food. A small loaf of crusty bread, a wedge of cheese, a bit of dried meat, and oddly a flower, a blue one, crushed slightly but deliberate. You blink. Who would leave this? And why? Is it pity? Gratitude? Fear? You glance around, but no one is watching. Just lantern glow and empty shutters. You unwrap the bread and tear off a piece. It's still warm, not tavern bread home-baked. You chew slowly, staring into the dark. No one teaches you how to handle kindness in this job. You sit again, back against the platform, eating in silence. The cheese is sharp, the meat salty. The flour? You tuck it behind your ear. Why not? It's not like there's a dress code. The square is fully asleep now. The town itself exhales. Somewhere, a shutter bangs open, then closed again. The dog has vanished. The gibbet still groans. And you? You finish the food and stretch your legs, eyes heavy, back stiff. But there's no bed for you. You curl beneath the stairs of the scaffold, your cloak pulled tight, sack for a pillow. It smells like vinegar and sawdust, but it's familiar. You close your eyes, unsure if you'll sleep. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you just lie there and listen to the whispers of wood and stone. Tonight, though, you dream, not of death, but of the flower. Still fresh, still blue, growing from the center of the chopping block, undisturbed by blood. And someone, maybe you, maybe not kneeling to smell it. You wake to the sound of boots on stone. Not loud, but purposeful. Not Giles. He stomps like a drunk ox. These steps are measured, heavy, armored. You blink your eyes open, stiff from sleeping curled beneath the scaffold stairs. The flower that had nestled behind your ear now lies crushed against your cheek. You brush it off gently, tucking the crumpled blue petals into your pocket without thinking. A guard stands at the edge of the square, not one of the usual ones. This man wears the polished mail of someone who either outranks you by several lifetimes, or has never cleaned anything in his life. You, he says, pointing a gaunted finger, fetch your master. The bailiff wants him. You push yourself upright and stretch, bones cracking like firewood. He's likely in the tavern, you mutter, but the guard's already turning away. No one waits for the assistant to finish his sentence. You shuffle toward the tavern, the morning air still damp with the promise of dew and regret. Inside, the place smells of spilled ale, old wood, and something that might once have been soup. You find Giles exactly where you expect him, slumped in the back corner, snoring into his own chest, with an empty bowl perched precariously on his belly. You nudge him. Bailiff wants you. He snorts, then opens one eye. What, already? Can't it wait till I've dreamt about something that ain't bleeding? Nope. With a grunt that sounds like a dying ox, he pushes himself upright, belches, and grabs the axe, not because he needs it, but because he likes people seeing it. The two of you walk back across the square together. Giles trails the axe behind him like a toddler with a stick, humming something tuneless. I bet it's that new merchant, he mutters, always nervous when outsiders show up. Thinks they're gonna charm the peasants into sedition. With lemons and silk. You don't respond. He doesn't expect you to. When you reach the town hall, the doors are already open. Inside, the bailiff stands near the hearth, arms crossed. A fire crackles, though the morning is warm. The merchant from yesterday is there too, looking even more nervous than before. He clutches a scroll like it might save his life. Probably won't. The bailiff doesn't waste time. We've a special commission, he says, nodding toward the merchant. From the Duke's court, a prisoner arriving by noon. Execution to be carried out at dusk. You blink. That's fast. Same-day justice isn't common unless the offense is particularly severe or the prisoner particularly inconvenient. Name? Giles asks, picking something from his teeth. Clovis Rain. That name lands heavy. Even Giles straightens a little. You've heard it, too. Everyone has. A known agitator. Alleged poisoner. Rumored to be half-mad. Definitely dangerous. And somehow still talked about like a folk villain in tavern songs. Historians still argue whether Clovis Rain was truly a traitor or just someone too clever for his own good. Depends on who's paying the historian, really. The bailiff continues. He'll be brought directly to the holding cell. You're to ensure the block is ready. And he eyes you now, that your boy doesn't faint this time. Giles grins. He's only fainted twice. That's fewer than me. The bailiff does not laugh. Do your job and keep it clean. We've dignitaries arriving. You feel your stomach drop. Dignitaries mean extra eyes, extra expectations. Fewer mistakes allowed. Back outside, Giles slaps. You're back hard enough to shift a lung. Well, Squire, he says, looks like we're gonna be famous or fired or both. You start preparing. No time for a slow breakfast today. You hauled buckets from the clean well this time. Giles said even the frogs moved out of the bad one. You double-check the axe edge. It's sharp, but you hone it anyway. You lay out the fresh linen cloths, the nicer ones usually reserved for noble heads. You sweep the platform twice. Then again, you hammer in a loose step on the scaffold, cursing when the nail bends sideways. You polish the block. Then you polish the cloth that polishes the block. You sweep so much you consider starting a side business in Broom's Dot as midday approaches. The square begins to shift. The crowd today is quieter. Not gone, never gone, but more subdued. Word travels fast. Everyone wants to see the infamous Clovis reign meet his end, but there's an unease in the air. Like the sky before a storm, you glance up. Clouds gather thick above, iron-colored and brooding. Of course it would rain today. Giles shows up freshly washed, an event so rare it may be a biblical sign, and wearing his less greasy tunic. Wouldn't want to smell like death, he jokes, even if I deal it. You wonder how many more executions he's done than he can count. Probably forgot half their names. Or maybe he remembers them all and just never talks about it. You run through your mental checklist again. Ropes, tied. Axe, clean. Platform, sturdy. Cloth, folded. Bucket, full. Nerves, frayed. As the first drop of rain hits your forehead, the prisoner's cart arrives. Clovis Rain doesn't look like a madman. He looks like someone who hasn't slept in a year but still insists on standing tall. His hair is gray, his beard uneven, and his eyes, those eyes scan the crowd like he's memorizing their sins. The guards haul him from the cart, but he doesn't resist. He walks on his own, each step deliberate, like he's counting them. His ankles are shackled, his hands bound. Yet somehow, he still gives the impression he's in control. You feel your throat go dry. He sees you, not the priest, not Giles, not the guards, you, and he smiles, not wide, not unhinged. Just enough to make you wonder whether he knows something you don't. You swallow hard and step back. The rain begins to fall in earnest now, pattering against the wood and washing thin red trails from yesterday's cracks in the scaffold. You tighten your cloak. You get the feeling this won't be a normal execution. You get the feeling this won't be normal at all. The rain falls steady, now soft, cold, and without pause. It slicks every surface of the square until the stones shine like oilskin, and the wooden platform glistens like something freshly butchered. You stand near the base of the scaffold, arms tucked close, cloak pulled tight. Not from the cold, but from the tension. Something in your chest won't loosen. Clovis Rain is led to the holding cell. He doesn't speak during the walk. He doesn't look at the guards. Just once, he glances upward at the stormy sky and mutters something under his breath. You catch only one word: expected. Inside the prison, the usual clank of keys and barked orders echo off the damp walls. Ulrich the jailer looks shaken. He tries to crack a joke, but his voice wavers halfway through. Like a cartwheel slipping in mud. Clovis enters the cell without resistance. When they remove his shackles, he rubs his wrists and then stretches his arms like a man waking from a long nap. The priest arrives shortly after, robes damp and sandals squeaking. He stands outside the cell door, unwilling to enter. He clears his throat and says the opening prayer with all the enthusiasm of a tax collector reading bedtime stories. Clovis interrupts him. Save your breath, Father. I've already made my peace. Just make sure your God knows I'm coming with questions. The priest goes silent. You're the one holding the door. Just standing there, hands clenched, trying not to make noise. And Clovis turns his head slightly, just enough to speak to you. Do you ever wonder if they'll put you on the list one day? He asks calmly. You flinch. Not for a crime, he continues. Just for convenience. You don't answer. You can't. He smiles again. The same slow, unsettling smile from earlier. Historians still argue whether Clovis Rain truly believed he would escape death, or whether he simply enjoyed unnerving everyone around him until the very end. From where you're standing, it could be both. You close the cell door, slower than usual. Back in the square, the crowd has gathered despite the weather. Umbrellas don't exist here, just cloaks pulled tight and hoods dripping down collars. But no one leaves. This is one of those executions, the kind people remember, the kind that makes it into songs. Vendors still try to sell pies. The smell of onions and boiled cabbage somehow cuts through the rain. A boy offers warm chestnuts. No one buys them. Everyone's watching the platform. You walk up the scaffold steps to check the final details. The blade gleams under the gray sky. The block looks almost polished in the wet light. You position the stool beside it. The rain hasn't cleared the air. If anything, it's made it thicker. Every breath tastes like smoke and iron. Then, the prisoner is brought out. Clovis walks without chains. That's unusual. The guards flank him closely, but don't touch him. He doesn't need encouragement. He knows where to go. You wait near the platform, watching as he ascends the steps slowly. When he reaches the top, he looks out at the crowd, like he's about to deliver a sermon, and then he speaks loud. Clear. This town is built on lies, he says, and watered with silence. A murmur ripples through the crowd. I die today, not for poison, but for truth. And you let it happen. Every one of you. A tomato flies from somewhere in the back and misses by a foot. Clovis doesn't flinch. Giles steps forward, face blank. He tugs at Clovis's shoulder. Time's up. Clovis nods once, then kneels without resistance. He rests his chin on the block. Even now, he looks comfortable. You take your place at the side, kneeling, ready to bind his hands, except they already are. He did it himself. A single loop of rope tied neatly around his wrists. You glance at Giles. He shrugs. Easiest job I've had all week. The priest says a final blessing, louder than usual, as though volume might compensate for dread. The bell tolls once deep and long. Giles raises the axe. The crowd leans in, and then Clovis whispers something. You're close enough to hear, just barely. He says, they'll come for you too. And then Giles swings. The blade connects in a single perfect arc. No hesitation, no correction. Clovis's body slumps forward. The head rolls cleanly. A wave of gasps passes through the crowd like a gust of wind. Rain drums harder. Or maybe it just feels louder now. You step forward, cloth in hand, and begin wiping. The blood comes easily thinner in the rain. Almost elegant, like watercolor down a drain. You lift the head carefully, placing it into the sack. His eyes are closed. That same faint smile still lingers on his lips. You turn away, suddenly aware of how quiet the square has become. And then someone begins to clap. Slow. One pair of hands. Then another joins. Then more. You freeze. Executions are not supposed to. And in applause, Giles glances at you. His face is unreadable. You tighten the sack and begin carrying the remains toward the cart. The rain hides the tremble in your hands. As you pass the edge of the crowd, you hear the whispers. Did you hear what he said? Who's he talking about? Was it a warning? You don't stop. You don't want to know. You place the sack gently beside the body, then climb onto the cart. Giles takes the reins. No one follows. The road to the graveyard feels longer today. Quieter. You don't speak. Neither does he, because there's nothing to say when the dead leave behind echoes. The cart wobbles over the muddy trail, wheels creaking in protest as if they too resent the weight they bear. Rain taps the canvas stretched over the body, a soft percussive rhythm that seems almost respectful. You sit beside the bundle, back, hunched, arms crossed tight against the cold and the thoughts, swirling too fast in your mind. Giles hasn't said a word since the platform. Not a grunt, not a joke, not even a curse when the wheel hit that rock back there and nearly sent him flying. That silence? It's worse than any sermon. You stare out at the trees, blurred and dripping under the gray sky. The graveyard comes into view, just a simple plot of land behind the chapel, filled with more stones than names. Most of the markers here are unmarked. Some are barely stones, some just lumps of soil. Clovis Rain will be buried in the section reserved for the condemned. No family allowed. No prayers said. Just the earth, some shovels, and two men who stopped asking why a long time ago. The gravedigger waits, spade in hand, hat pulled low to keep the rain out of his eyes. He doesn't look surprised to see you. He rarely looks anything at all. Quick. Job? He asks, voice like gravel soaked in beer. Giles shrugs. Quick enough. You both hop down from the cart, boots sinking into mud that smells faintly of mushrooms and rot. You take the body carefully. Even in death, there's a heaviness to Clovis Rain, like the world hasn't quite finished with him yet. You try not to look at the lump that is his head inside the sack, but it shifts. You look anyway. Still smiling, you blink and it's gone. Just the rain. Just your nerves, probably dot together. You and the gravedigger lower the body into the freshly dug pit. The sack follows. There's no ceremony, no marker. Just dirt on wood, shovel on silence. Dot as you turn to leave, the gravedigger leans in. You hear what he said? He asks, without looking up. You pause. What? Right before the chop. Heard it from here. Said they'd come for you too. You swallow. He was talking to the crowd. Sure he was, the gravedigger mutters. Sure he was. You walk back to the cart alone. Back in the square, the rain has lightened, though the clouds still hang low and heavy, like a blanket waiting to smother the rooftops. The crowd's gone, the vendors too. Just empty benches, overturned baskets, and the persistent smell of damp wood. You begin to clean up. Again. Always again. The cloths are heavier now, sodden and streaked with crimson diluted to pink. You scrub the platform slowly, every stroke of the brush pulling back pieces of today. The stain Clovis left is deeper than most, like the wood absorbed his defiance and now refuses to let it go. Giles eventually reappears, hands in his pockets, hood low. You done with that? Almost. Good. You'll want to get to the tool shed after. Got something for you. You raise an eyebrow. He's already walking away. You finish the cleaning. You always finish the cleaning. You don't know if anyone notices, but you never leave the block dirty. It's a small ritual, a thread of control in a job that offers none. Once it's done, you head to the shed. The hinges creak the way they always do, like something alive protesting its own spine. On the table inside, a parcel, wrapped in cloth, tied with twine. No note. You unwrap it slowly. Inside is a leather-bound journal, old, cracked, the kind that smells like dust and memory. You open it. The handwriting is neat, sharp, familiar. It's Clovis Rain's. The first page reads, "If you're reading this, I failed." But that doesn't mean you have to. You sit down. The rest of the world vanishes. Each page is filled with notes, diagrams of the town, lists of names, dates, observations. Some of them are mundane. Who bribes the market inspector when the guards change shifts? Others, not so much. Claims about poisonings, about justice for coin, about false confessions and staged crimes. You feel the blood drain from your face. You skim a passage. They don't fear the execution. They fear exposure. And if you're reading this, you're already dangerous. Because you were close enough to watch the truth die. You close the book. Your hands shake. You've spent so long wiping blood. You never thought to ask whose it shouldn't have been. Historians still argue whether Clovis was a martyr, a madman, or merely unlucky. What's certain is that he was watching, documenting, leaving breadcrumbs for someone with nothing left to lose. You look at the journal again, then at your hands, stained, calloused, steady. You've always followed orders, always kept your head down, always cleaned up after the choices of men like Giles, like the bailiff, like the ones whose names appear again and again in this book. But now, in this moment, the silence feels different, heavier, expectant. You tuck the journal into your cloak, not to hide it, to keep it close, because something has changed. You're still the executioner's assistant, but now you're also the witness. You don't sleep that night. The journal stays under your bedroll, pressed flat by your chest, as if proximity alone might soak the knowledge into your bones. But sleep, that doesn't come. Not when every creak of wood or whisper of wind sounds, like a secret shifting in the dark. When dawn finally stretches across the cobbles, you sit up with a back full of pins and needles and a head full of names. Names that don't belong on a chopping block. Names that might. You peek again at the journal. The ink hasn't faded overnight, but it feels darker now, heavier. You thumb back to a passage you read 3 times already. The assistant sees everything. The crowds don't. That's why you matter more than you realize. You'd laugh matter if your stomach weren't doing flips. Still, you get up. Still, you go to the square. Because Giles expects it. Because the tools won't clean themselves. Because pretending to be normal is easier than confronting what this job might really mean. The air smells like damp earth and yesterday's onions. Someone must have dropped their lunch after the execution. The crows got to it first. You go through the motions, polish the blade, inspect the ropes, restock the sand used to soak up blood. You pause a moment longer at the block, your hand hovering over the wood, like it might speak to you, like it might still be warm from Clovis's presence. It's not. But your hand still lingers. Giles arrives late. As usual, he tosses you a crust of bread from across the square. "Eat up," he calls. "You've got rats to chase later." They're back under the gibbet again, probably nesting in someone's pelvis. You catch the bread. It's stale. Your appetite isn't much better. He doesn't notice anything's changed, or maybe he does and just doesn't care. That's the thing about Giles. You can't tell if he's indifferent or just numb. You spend the morning in repetition. Repetition is safe. Repetition doesn't question the bailiff's smirk or the way the priest avoids eye contact when the list is read. Repetition doesn't leave time to think about the journal now tied tight inside a cloth bundle in your belt. Until Ulrich shows up. The jailer rarely visits the square unless he's delivering someone or collecting coin. But today, he's empty-handed and fidgeting. Giles notices too. "What is it, Ulrich? Don't tell me we've got another one today." "I haven't even digested yesterday." Ulrich scratches his neck. "No execution. Bailiff just wants to see the boy." You freeze. You're the boy. No one calls you by name anymore. You're not sure if they even remember it. Giles snorts. "What's he done now? Tie a knot too symmetrical." Ulrich shrugs. "Didn't say, just said now." You wipe your hands on your apron and try to still the buzz crawling under your skin. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe they want to ask about the crowd yesterday, or the clean swing. Or maybe they know. You follow Ulrich through the side streets, the journal thumping gently against your side with every step. The town feels different this morning, tighter, like the walls have ears, like the shutters are watching. The bailiff's chamber is dim, the shutters closed. Fire low. The man himself sits behind a desk littered with scrolls and 2 uneaten apples. He looks up when you enter, but doesn't smile. "Sit," he says, gesturing to the stool. You do. He taps a finger against the wood. "Yesterday's execution was clean." You nod. Clovis Rain didn't resist. Another nod. He spoke. You hesitate. Then nod again. He leans forward. "What did he say?" You pause. The words rise to your lips uninvited. They'll come for you too, but you say nothing that made sense. A beat of silence. The bailiff exhales slowly. He was mad, of course. Dangerous. But dangerous men are sometimes clever. Clever enough to plant ideas. Did he give you anything? You meet his eyes. No, you can't tell if he believes you. He watches you a moment longer, then leans back. You've done your job well. That's all we ask. But remember, questions are not your duty. Swing the rope, clean the blood. That's your world. You nod. Inside, something curls inward. He waves you off. That's all. You leave quickly, the journal pressing against your ribs like a warning. Outside, the sky is clearing. The rain has stopped. The square glints in the pale light, deceptively clean. You return to the shed and close the door behind you. You take out the journal. Your hands don't shake this time. You flip to the back, a diagram of the scaffold. Not just its parts, its weaknesses, which joints are loose, which steps creak. A note scribbled in the margin. Everyone watches the blade. No one watches the floorboards. You turn the page. A list. Names. Dates. All matching executions from the last 3 years. Cross-referenced with crimes you now recognize were whispers, not facts. Some of these people didn't even get trials. Your breath catches on one name. You recognize it. Not from the journal, from your life. A girl who used to sell pears near the tannery. She was accused of theft. Executed the week before you became assistant. You'd thought it was a simple case. Everyone had .now next to her name. Tried to report the bailiff for tax fraud. Disappeared 2 days later. Stole a loaf, they claimed. You close the book, not because you're done, because you're just beginning. The rest of the day unfolds like a play you've already seen too many times, predictable, slow, and mostly silent. You go through your motions, and no one questions you. They never do. You've been invisible for so long, it's almost a power. Sweep the square, mend a strap on the gallows pulley, toss grain at the pigeons, just to feel like something in this place listens to you. All the while, the journal weighs down your pocket like an extra limb, or a loaded dice. You catch Giles watching you once from across the square, a mouthful of meat pie in one hand and something unreadable in his eyes. You give him a nod. He returns it, then wipes his mouth with his sleeve and walks off. Just like that. No joke. No grunt. Just gone. The journal stays hidden until after dusk. After you've cleaned and stacked and said your quiet goodnights to a platform that no one else would ever thank. After you've walked past the empty stocks and the lone candle flickering in the chapel window. After the streets have emptied, only then do you sneak off, not home, but to the edge of town, where the ruins of the old grain mill still sit, forgotten. It's one of the few places you can read without being seen, without hearing the word. Assistant, tossed around like a curse. You duck under a rotted beam, light your stub of candle, and open the journal. Tonight, you focus on the back page's notes that feel newer, less polished. Clovis's last thoughts, maybe. Half-formed observations. One line catches you. There's a pattern to the sentencing. Look at who isn't on the list. You frown. That doesn't make sense. What pattern? You flip to another page. A list of names. All not executed. Nobles. Merchants. Guard captains. One even scratched out with a note. Accused of murder. Cleared in 1 day. You begin to understand. The executions aren't just about punishment. They're about control. Those who die, they're inconvenient. They spoke too loud, knew too much, owed too little. Those who live, protected, profitable. You run your finger down the list and pause on a familiar name. Vintner Giroux. You remember him, saw him at least twice near the square, red-cheeked and smug, always arguing prices, always carrying more coin than courtesy. You remember the whisper that he'd poisoned the rival's son. Everyone heard it, but nothing ever came of it. No arrest. No trial. Just silence. Next to his name, Clovis wrote, "Paid off the bailiff in barrels." Not even subtle. You shut the book. The candles half gone. Your breath mists in the cold. Somewhere beyond the mill, an owl calls a low, lonely sound. You don't know what to do with what you now hold. You are an assistant, not a scribe, not a priest, not a knight. But the more you read, the more you see how deep the rot goes. Back in town, they call the block justice, but it's a stage. And you've been sweeping the stage after every act, pretending not to know the script. Historians still argue whether justice in medieval towns was truly blind, or just wearing a coin pouch over its eyes. But the ones who lived it, you know, the truth. You blow out the candle, sit in the dark for a while, let it settle. When you return to your sleeping mat in the tool shed, the journal stays under your cloak. You sleep curled around it like it might vanish if you let go. You dream again, not of blood, not of executions, but of standing on the scaffold, holding the journal in one hand, the axe in the other. And the crowd below doesn't jeer. They listen. When you wake, you half expect to see someone standing over you. But the shed is empty. The town is silent. Almost. You hear murmurs outside. Morning voices. But something's wrong. Tense. Urgent. You open the door a crack and see them. Guards. 5 of them, armed, walking straight toward the shed. You don't wait to find out why. You grab the journal, shove it into the burlap sack beneath your bench, and cover it with rags. Just in time. The door slams open. Ulrich stands there, looking more irritated than usual. "They want you," he says. "Who?" You ask, keeping your voice level. "The bailiff." Again. Seems someone's got questions about your reading habits. Your mouth goes dry. "I don't read," Ulrich snorts. "Could have fooled me. You always looked like the type who knew too. Many letters." He turns on his heel and walks off. You follow. And as you walk, something clicks. They don't know what you have. Not yet. But they suspect. And that means one thing. They're afraid. The walk to the town hall feels longer this time. Not because the streets have grown, but because your mind has. Every step lands with the weight of knowing. Before the journal, before Clovis, your job had a grim simplicity. Wake, clean, tie. Wipe, sleep, repeat. But now, your hands feel too empty and your thoughts too full. The guards flanking the hall door don't speak as you approach. One of them just opens the heavy oak and gestures with his chin. Inside, the chamber is dim again, as if sunlight itself doesn't trust this place anymore. The bailiff stands by the hearth, arms folded, lips pursed. His eyes are on you before you even step fully inside. "You've been busy," he says. "Not." A question. You nod once. No point in pretending otherwise. Assistants are always busy. Blood doesn't clean itself. He circles you slowly. You hate when he does that. Like a dog sniffing a weak spot. "There are whispers," he continues. "That you've been seen poking around old records, listening to drunk men. Sitting too. Long in places no one bothers with. You stay quiet. Let the silence be its own answer." He stops in front of you. Close. Too close. "Do you know what keeps order in this town?" He asks. You don't respond. "Fear," he says. "Fear that if you steal, you hang. If you stab, you swing. If you talk too much," he smiles, thin and cold, "you vanish. Clean, efficient." He tilts his head. "Do you fear anything?" You don't blink. "Only wasting what I've seen." A flicker in his eyes. Surprise, amusement, or calculation. "Careful," he murmurs. That sounds like a thought. And thoughts become ideas, and ideas become trouble. He turns, then gestures toward the door. "That's all for now, but stay close. I may need you to assist again soon." You leave without another word. The door shuts behind you like a guillotine. Outside, the air tastes different. The breeze has lost its softness. There's a pressure to it now, like the town itself is watching from behind its own windows and shutters. You walk fast. Not quite. Running, but not far from it. Back to the shed. Back to the journal. When you get there, the rags have been moved, only slightly. Just enough to notice. Someone searched it. Your heart kicks your ribs. You grab the sack, pull out the journal. It's intact, no pages missing, but someone knows. Giles? You don't think so. If Giles knew, he wouldn't search quietly. He'd swing first. Ask second. You open to the newest page. It's one of Clovis's scribbled notes again. They'll try to catch you before the crowd notices you're missing. You sit down. Hard. Your hands are shaking now. You press them flat against your knees, willing the tremble away. You need clarity. You need a plan. You think back. What did Clovis do with this information? He didn't just write. He organized. Spoke in taverns. Slipped notes into pockets. Whispered to anyone who would listen long enough not to flinch. And it got him killed. You aren't Clovis. But you have something he didn't. A backstage pass. Are the assistant. You know the steps. The shadows. The squeaky boards in the scaffold. You know the rhythm of the rope and how long it takes the blade to drop and bounce. You know who looks away and who never does. Historians still argue whether assistants played a meaningful role in shaping justice, or were just hands for hire. But in this moment, you realize something frightening and freeing. You're the only one who touches everything. The list. The prisoner. The priest. The blade. The body. You carry it all. And now you carry something heavier. Truth. You close the journal. And wrap it again. This time, you don't put it under the rags. You don't hide it. You strap it under your tunic, across your back, flat against your spine. If they search again, they'll find nothing. You step outside. The square is quiet, but not empty. There are always watchers now. A man pretending to sweep. A woman at a window with the same cloth for an hour. You make your rounds anyway. You polish the axe. Sweep the steps. Smile at the baker's apprentice when he passes. You're just the assistant. Invisible. Harmless. Forgettable. Until you're not. As dusk falls. You hear your name. Not assistant. Your actual name. You turn. It's Giles. He's holding something in his hand. A letter. Found this, he grunts. Tucked under your blanket. Thought it was another rat till it moved. You take the letter. It's folded tightly. No seal. You unfold it with care. The handwriting isn't Clovis's. It's unfamiliar. Just one sentence. Meet at the tannery after dark. Come alone. We. No name. No explanation. But that's all it takes. You glance at Giles. Did you read it? He shrugs. Couldn't be bothered. If it's a love note, tell her I'm flattered. He walks away. You tuck the letter inside your sleeve and return to the shed. Heart pounding. After dark. Alone. You're not sure if this is the beginning of something greater, or the end of you, but you'll go because you have to, because you've already stepped off the scaffold, and there's no climbing back on without becoming the one with the rope. The sun slips behind the chapel roof like it's ashamed of what's coming. Twilight paints the square in rust and violet, making every shadow feel longer, sharper. You wait until full dark before you move, not out of fear, but instinct. The kind of instinct you've learned cleaning blood off woodbrain. The kind that says, move only when the light is looking away. The tannery sits at the edge of town, past the mill, where the air always stinks of lime and rot. Even in daylight, no one lingers there. At night, only fools or ghosts. You're not sure which one you are. You walk with purpose, but not haste. Anyone watching should think you're on an errand. Maybe to check a trap. Maybe to meet a girl. Anything but this. The street narrows. The tannery's crooked roof appears behind a fence of leaning slats. You slip through the gate and step into the open courtyard. The vats are covered, but the smell still claws at your throat. Someone's already there. Two someones. A girl, barely older than you, stands near one of the vats, cloak soaked at the hem. Her hands are hidden in her sleeves. Her eyes are steady. Beside her, a boy leans against the post. Younger, nervous. His boots are too clean for this place. They don't speak until the gate creaks shut behind you. Then the girl says, "You brought it?" You nod. She doesn't ask. "To see it, that's smart. I'm Marta," she says. "This is Jack." The boy waves without lifting his hand. "You're the assistant." You nod again. Marta watches you carefully. "Clovis said you might notice. Most don't." "I didn't notice," you say. "He made sure I couldn't ignore it." She exhales. "He was good at that." A silence settles. Rain drips somewhere distant. You feel like you've stepped into another world, quieter one, but no less dangerous. Marta gestures to a crate. "Sit." You do. She leans forward. "We're not revolutionaries, not heroes, just people who know things we shouldn't. People who've seen too many good names scratched from the list." You unfasten the strap beneath your cloak. Slide the journal out, laid on the crate. Jack inhales sharply. Marta doesn't move. "That's his," she says quietly. "Yes." "You've read it?" "Enough." Marta opens it with reverence, like scripture. She flips to the center. Her finger traces a line. "I copied half of this," she murmurs. "But then he vanished. Then he came back in chains." You say nothing. What can you say to someone who's watched the only person who believed them lose their head on your block? Jack finally speaks. They say he smiled at the end. You nod. He did. Marta closes the journal. You understand what this means, right? With this list, these notes, we could prove it. The bribes, the disappearances, the executions that were never supposed to happen. You nod again. But we'd need someone close. Someone they don't suspect. You meet her eyes. They already suspect me. But not enough to kill you yet. You sit with that for a moment. She's right. If the bailiff were certain, you wouldn't be breathing. You'd already be on the block or beneath it. Marta leans forward. You said you've seen things. Tell me one. So you do. You tell her about the girl who sold pears, the one whose name is in the journal, the one they said stole bread but never came home. How you remember her crying quietly in the cell. How she said her brother gave her the loaf. How she begged the priest to let her send a note. He never did. You remember the sound of the blade, the gasp from the crowd, the way Giles laughed after and said, "Not bad for a baker." Jack looks down. Marta just closes her eyes for a moment. When she opens them, something hotter glints behind the tiredness. Do you want out? She asks. You blink. Of the job? No. Of the system. Of helping them build this machine every day, then pretending you're just sweeping up after it. You don't speak, because yes. And also, you don't know how. Marta seems to read your silence. We're not asking you to quit. Not yet. You're useful where you are. You're invisible. That's power. You look at your hands. Stained, scarred, not invisible. But maybe underestimated. Jack clears his throat. We've got someone in the records hall. Quiet type. Scared, but reliable. If you could copy some of the names. I can do better, you interrupt. I have access to the list before the execution. Sometimes a day in advance. I know where it's kept. Marta raises an eyebrow. You'd steal it. You hesitate. No, but I can read it. Copy what I remember. Add to what Clovis started. She nods slowly. Then that's your role, for now. You reach into your belt and pull out a folded square of paper. A name you found in the journal, one with a red mark next to it. Bastian Cord. He's next, you say. I saw it on the bailiff's wall. They haven't announced it yet. Marta snatches the name. He's a scribe. Wrote something about land taxes. Disappeared last week. You have 2 days, you say. 3 if they delay. She tucks the paper away. We'll find him. Jack grins suddenly. We're doing it. Really doing it. Marta rolls her eyes. We're surviving. That's enough. She hands you back the journal. Hide it. Well, not in the shed. Somewhere even you don't like to go. You nod. You already know the place. As you stand to leave, Marta touches your arm. You're not alone anymore. That's the part they fear most. You nod again, but this time, something inside you believes it. The walk back is quiet. The stars are gone. The wind has picked up, but your steps feel lighter, and your eyes sharper. The assistant is watching now. You bury the journal before sunrise. Not deep, just enough to hide it from eyes that don't know where to look. You choose the oldest part of the graveyard, behind a crumbling headstone where no one visits anymore. The stone says mercy. Just that one word, half swallowed by moss. It feels appropriate. You wrap the journal in oiled cloth, then in a second layer of sackcloth, and tie it with rope. Your hands work quickly, deliberately. This part of you knows what it's doing, the part trained by repetition, refined by fear. When it's done, you scatter leaves across the disturbed earth and press your palm into the dirt one last time. You whisper nothing, no vow, no prayer, just silence, because silence, you've learned, can be sacred to dot by the time you return to the square. The sun has started to lift the night's damp weight. The stones glisten with dew. You pass the scaffold, without looking directly at it. Today, no execution is scheduled. The block sits empty, waiting. Giles is already in the shed, sharpening a chisel with surprising concentration. He doesn't look up. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. He grunts. Good. There's a wheelbarrow of rope that needs sorting. It's all tangled from the last flogging. You nod and move toward the pile, but you don't untangle it right away. You just stare. Because for the first time, it feels like more than rope. It feels like metaphor. In your hands. Once so quick to tie knots, now hesitate to reinforce them. You begin slowly, separating the strands, feeling each fiber under your fingers. You think about how many of these ropes have held wrists that didn't deserve it. How many turned necks into leverage. How many loops were tied by your hands while your eyes stayed turned away, and now you can't unsee it. Historians still argue whether executioners ever disobeyed quietly slack ropes, misswung blades, whispered warnings. But assistants? No one ever writes about them, which makes you wonder if that silence wasn't because they were obedient, but because they were careful. Giles tosses a file onto the bench beside you. You're quiet. I usually am. He shrugs. Fair. You chance a glance at him. For a moment, he just looks like an old man. Not a monster. Not a master. Just tired. He catches you staring and raises an eyebrow. What? Do you ever forget them? You ask. The ones on the block? He snorts. Some others stick. One screamed like a goat. Another quoted poetry. There was one who asked me if my boots were tight enough right before I swung. You nod. Clovis Rain. Did you remember what he said? Giles scratches his beard. Not really. Something dramatic. They always do. Doesn't matter. Dead is dead. You wonder if he really believes that. You don't. Not anymore. By midday, the square is full of market sounds again, carts creaking, coins clinking, laughter over spilled cider. It's a strange thing to live inside a job so soaked in death, and yet see life hum around you as if nothing ever happens on that scaffold. You stand at the edge of the crowd, pretending to examine apples, when you notice a slip of parchment tucked into the vendor's crate. Just the edge peeking out. You wait until no one's looking, then snag it. Inside your palm, you unfold it slowly. 3 words, scrawled in charcoal. Bastion is safe. You pocket the note and hand the vendor a coin, even though you take nothing. Later, that evening, you find Giles already halfway through a mug of something thick and brown, sitting beside the scaffold, legs stretched. He doesn't look drunk. Just quiet. I ever tell you why I took this job? He asks suddenly. You shake your head. My brother was supposed to be the assistant. Big, strong, smarter than me. But he got caught gambling with the bishop's son, got himself thrown in the stocks. They needed someone. I was closest. He takes a sip, thought it'd be temporary. A season, maybe 2. Then they stopped calling me by my name. Just executioner, like the job swallowed the man. You look at him, really look. He's not proud. He's not cruel. He's just tired. They'll forget your name too, he says, without malice. Eventually. Maybe I'll give them something to remember, you say softly. He chuckles. Now that's dangerous talk. He raises his mug to you. To dangerous assistance. You tap your knuckles against it. To truth. That night, you return to the graveyard not to dig, but to sit. To remember that you think about Clovis, about the girl with the pears, about Bastian. Wherever he is dot, you think about how easy it would be to stop dot to do the job. Clean the blade, tie the knots. But the moment you saw, you became something else dot, not just the assistant. Now, you are the observer dot, the recorder. And someday, maybe soon, you'll become the voice. The next morning arrives with a hush, no bells, no orders, no hammering hooves. Just the slow creak of shutters opening and the soft grind of a broom over stone. It should be comforting, this kind of quiet. But today, it wraps around you like a warning. You step out of the shed with your cloak pulled tight and your thoughts pulled tighter. A new execution has not been posted, but the town feels braced for one anyway. There's something in the air. People step faster, heads tilt less. Conversations stop when you pass. You know that silence. You clean up after it. The scaffold looms. Empty. A skeleton stage waiting for its next tragedy. You climb the stairs not out of duty, but to check. Not for damage. For anything left. And there it is. Folded under a loose board near the edge. Another note. You pry it free, fingers slick with morning dew, and unfold the small square of parchment. Your list is growing, so is theirs. Stay ahead. No signature, no seal, but the handwriting matches the one from the tannery meeting. Marta. You burn the note inside, the tool shed's lantern just in case, and then, because it's the only thing you can do, you go to the well and haul water like it's any other day. You scrub the block. You repair the worn strap on the executioner's hood. You patch a fraying rope. You pretend. Because pretending is what keeps you alive. But the pretending is starting to show its cracks. Around midday, Ulrich finds you. New. Name just came down, he says, tossing a roll of parchment at your feet like he's discarding fish guts. Execution tomorrow. Early. You nod without looking up. Wait for his footsteps to vanish. Then you unroll the parchment slowly. Arlen Voigt. No age. No description. Just a name. You roll it back up. Then unroll it again. Arlen Voigt. You. Know that name. He's the candle maker. Lame in one leg. Always smells of tallow and smoke. Sells small wax figures to children for far less than he should. He waved at you once. You run to the shed and dig out the journal from your hiding place behind the false wall you built into the bench slats. Flip through the pages. Fast, then slow. They're his name. Clovis wrote it in the margin of an entry. Arlen saw the ledgers. Knows the taxes were forged. Wanted to go to the steward. Didn't realize the steward was the one forging them. You sit back. Cold dot, so this is how they deal with knowledge. Quiet, neat, final. And you're holding the rope dot again dot, but this time, you don't wait for dusk to act. You go dot to the candle shop. The town streets blur around you as you walk. People seem to vanish before your eyes. Or maybe you've learned to stop seeing them. The door to Arlen's shop is closed. Curtains drawn. Too quiet. You knock once dot, no answer dot, twice dot, then a soft shuffle. The door opens a crack dot. It's not Arlen who answers, but his daughter. 10, maybe 11. Big eyes. Candle wax on her sleeve. Is your father home? You ask, gently. She stares, then nods once and disappears. Moments later, Arlen appears, limping, shoulders hunched, a face shaped by firelight and caution. You've come to collect me, haven't you? He says quietly. No, you whisper. I've come to warn you. He stiffens. You step inside quickly, gently closing the door behind you. The room smells like beeswax and singed wick. Candles line every wall, some shaped into animals, some into saints. One looks suspiciously like Giles. You lower your voice. You have until nightfall. If you can get to the old mill, they'll meet you. They'll hide you. Arlen's eyes fill, half fear, half disbelief. They'll come looking, he says. I know. That's why you need to be gone before they remember to do it loudly. He reaches out, grabs your forearm. Why are you doing this? You hesitate. Then. Because I tied the rope around someone like you. And I didn't ask why. Now I know better. He nods once. The kind of nod people give when they understand something too big to say aloud. As you turn to leave, he grabs something from the counter and presses it into your hand. A small candle shaped like a hooded figure holding a lantern. May it guide you when no one else will. You tuck it inside your sleeve. And run. Back to the square. Back to the script. You find Giles lounging near the tavern, biting into an onion like it's an apple. Where have you been? He asks. Rope shop, you lie. One of ours frayed. Again, he shrugs. Everything's frayed. You nod. The afternoon passes slowly. A long breath held too long. You sweep the steps. Mend a bolt on the stocks. Pretend you don't hear the bailiff conferring with a guard in the corner. But by sundown, there's movement, whispers, uncertainty, a name being passed from mouth to mouth. They can't find him. He was supposed to be here. The girl says he left at midday. The bailiff's face sours like milk. Giles is summoned and returns grumbling. Can't do an execution without a body, he mutters. They'll blame me for this. You shrug, quietly pleased. You retreat to the shed before anyone asks questions. And that's where you light the candle. The little wax figure flickers, its lantern casting soft light against the walls. You watch it melt slowly, scenting the air. With honey and quiet. Tomorrow, they'll post another name, and you'll be ready. Because now, you're not just the one who cleans up after the choices of others. You are the one who disrupts them. And the rope in your hand? Maybe it's no longer for binding. Maybe it's for untying. The candle burns down to a stub by midnight, and you sit watching it like it might whisper secrets in its final breaths. The little wax lantern guttering in the draft feels like the last warm thing in the world. When it finally flickers out, the room darkens, but not entirely. Your eyes have adjusted. You see clearly now, even without light. You bury the remains of the candle in the ash pile behind the shed, where no one will think to look. A small grave for a small act of defiance. The next morning, there's no list. No new name nailed to the post. No hammering. No crowds, but the bailiff is pacing the square. You stay busy near the scaffold, hauling buckets, dragging sand, mending a split in one of the platform's beams. All busy work. All ways to keep close while pretending to be far. You hear snippets. Gone. Since yesterday. Daughter swears he left for medicine. No sighting at the east gate. Too many disappearances. Too many whispers. You can feel the panic. Not in the people they're used to panic, but in authority. It's small now, subtle, but it's there. By midday, Giles joins you on the platform. He doesn't speak for a long time. Just watches the square. Then finally, you hear about the candle maker? You nod. Ran off, they say. Giles snorts. They always run when they know what's coming. Question is, how'd he know? You keep your face still. Lucky guess? He gives you a look measured, not angry. You're getting sharper, he mutters. Used to be you flinched when they screamed. Now you flinch when they're silent. You say nothing. He squints toward the bailiff. You ever think we're not the bad ones? You blink. We? Us, executioners, assistants. The crowd sees us and blames us. But we're not the ones writing names. We're just the ones holding the axe. Does that excuse it? Giles shrugs. Didn't say that. Just said it's worth knowing where the stink starts. You glance at him, surprised by the clarity. Maybe he's been thinking about this longer than you guessed. Or maybe Clovis's smile still haunts him in the quiet moments between bites of onion. You step down from the scaffold and head toward the chapel. Not to pray though, that's what people assume when you enter. You go because it's quiet, cool, forgotten. And in the far back pew, tucked behind a crumbling hymnal stand, Marta is waiting. No cloak this time. No disguise. Just a girl with a knotted ribbon around her wrist and ink stains on her fingers. You sit beside her like you belong there. She slides a scrap of parchment into your hand. List update. 3 names we think will surface in the next cycle. You scan them, 2 you recognize. 1 is a surprise. He's a priest, you murmur. Why would they? He reported a noble for assaulting a parish boy, she says, quietly. It didn't stay quiet. You fold the list and slide it into your boot. She watches the stained glass for a moment. They're tightening everything. Since Arlen vanished, they've doubled the guard on the east gate. Cross-checking card permits. People are getting nervous. That's good, you say. Nervous people watch more. She nods, but scared people also turn others in. You sit together in silence, the kind that isn't awkward, just cautious. Finally, she says, we need to get into the bailiff's records. You don't move. Soon, she adds. You glance around. How? There's a window above the back hall. We think there's a loose shutter. We need someone small enough to slip in, or someone already allowed inside. You sigh. I'm allowed in. Marta meets your eyes. Then it has to be you. You feel your stomach clench. Not at the risk, at the certainty. There's a moment when doing the right thing shifts from idea to decision. This is that moment. You nod. She presses something into your palm. A soft weight. A folded black cloth stitched with a single red thread. If you're caught, burn it, she says. No one else carries these. You don't ask what it means. You understand. You leave the chapel through the side, just as the bell begins to ring. A slow, heavy-tone funeral, not execution. Someone else has died today, not by rope. Just time. You make your way to the town hall and offer to deliver Giles's monthly roster, an errand he hates. The clerk waves you past. Barely glancing up. The corridor is empty. You count the doors. 3rd on the left. The one with the loose hinge. Inside, the bailiff's records are stacked in cubbies like loaves of black bread. You move quickly, carefully, locating the ones Marta described. You take 3 documents. Just 3. Not enough to notice yet. But enough to match names to forged charges. Enough to make the pattern real. You slide them beneath your apron, between the lining. As you move toward the door, you spot it, another parchment pinned to the wall. Tomorrow's name. You read it. You feel your breath catch. It's Marta. You walk out slowly, eyes forward, heart racing. The crowd doesn't see or panic. The guards don't notice the shift in your gait. You don't run. You never run. Back in the shed, you unwrap the black cloth and stare at it. You're not supposed to act. You're supposed to watch. Report. Delay. But if you do nothing, she dies. Take a breath. You reach for the tools. Not the axe. Not the rope. The wrench. The chisel. The bottle of oil. Because tonight, the scaffold's going to need a little maintenance. And when the blade falls tomorrow, it won't be the only thing that breaks. You work by moonlight. The square is asleep, save for a flickering lantern over the chapel door and the occasional rustle of a rat daring to cross open stone. You wait until the patrol passes, 2 guards in mismatched armor, yawning between grumbles. About the cold, and then you move. The tools are already in the shed. You've handled them for months. Grease, file, mallet, wedge. But tonight, you're not fixing. You're undoing. You climb the scaffold slowly, every step creaking in a language only you understand. It's a familiar tune, wood singing stress, iron humming beneath strain. You know which joints groan and which ones hide their weakness. You kneel beside the support under the blade track. The catch bolt, rusty but critical, holds the blade's weight before the swing. You've oiled it before, tightened it. Tonight, you loosen it. Not enough for collapse, just enough for resistance. A hesitation, a misfire. 1 second of failure. 1 second that might change everything. You wedge a sliver of wood behind the latch pin, then apply grease only to one side, uneven tension. When Giles pulls the lever, it will stutter, jerk, stumble. That will be your opening. You return the tools to their place, wiping the handles. You sweep the boards like always. Just a boy doing his job. But your hands are trembling. Back in the shed, you pull out the documents from the town hall. Mada's name is listed clearly. No crime. Just a note, subversive, contact of known agitator. Clovis, the bailiff, is clearing the roots that nourished him. One by one, and now tomorrow, they want to make a point. You sleep curled on your side, blade lengths from the wall. Not because you're cold, but because if someone comes in the night, you'll hear them. The morning bell tolls. Too soon, too sharp. You rise without stretching, every muscle already tight. Giles is outside, chewing on something unidentifiable. He jerks his chin toward the scaffold. She's already in the cell, he mutters. Didn't scream. Not yet, anyway. You nod, the motion shallow, rehearsed. You know what comes next. You fetch the pail. You sharpen the blade, but not too much. You gather the cloths. You set the bucket beside the block. Every step, routine. Every action, a lie. The square begins to fill, slowly, like water rising in a basin. Faces appear. Mouths whisper. A child climbs onto a crate, craning to see. You keep your eyes on the scaffold. You think about Marta. Her eyes, steady in the chapel. Her fingers, stained with ink. Her voice, low but certain. You're not alone anymore. The bailiff appears, flanked by guards. His robe is freshly pressed, his face freshly shaved. He loves days like this. Visible power, invisible blood. Ulrich leads Marta up the scaffold steps. She's not in rags. She wears a clean tunic. No bruises. No bindings, but her hands are shaking. You stand by the block, cloth in hand. Giles walks slowly behind her, hood already on. She catches your eyes, just once, and nods. She kneels. Giles lifts the axe, steps forward. Pauses. You whisper, Giles. He turns, the catch. He frowns, checks the lever, mutters something. Pulls it. And that's when it happens. The blade jerks halfway, seizing with a loud clang. It lurches forward but doesn't drop. The crowd gasps. Giles curses. You move. You grab Marta's elbow and yank her sideways, off the block. She stumbles. A guard yells. The priest recoils. Giles is frozen. The bailiff stands, stunned. Marta looks at you wild-eyed, breathless, and doesn't hesitate. She runs. You follow, down the scaffold steps, across the square. Behind you, the crowd explodes in noise. Not outrage, confusion, a moment of chaos. Enough. Marta dashes through the bakery alley. You're behind her, boots skidding on wet stone. A guard lunges from the side street. You shove a barrel into his legs. He tumbles with a shout. You run. You both run, past the gibbet, past the well, into the mill ruins. Only when the noise fades do you stop. Breath ragged, heart loud. She turns to you, chest heaving. You planned this. You nod. Why? Because they wrote your name. She stares, then smiles. Just a little. You realize they'll hunt you now. You nod again. Then come on, she says. Let's not waste the head start. You duck through the mill's back wall into the woods beyond. The path is narrow, known only to the route runners and the desperate. Behind you, the town is waking to a very different story. The assistant disobeyed. The execution failed, and the rope was untied. Historians may one day debate how the resistance truly began, whether it started with Clovis's words or with your hands loosening a single bolt. But you'll remember it like this: a misfired blade. Steady nod dot, and the moment you stopped cleaning after injustice and broke the machine. Instead, the forest swallows you whole. Your boots leave uneven prints in the mossy dirt, but they vanish quickly, covered by falling leaves, tangled roots, and a path that curves like it's trying to protect you. Marta runs ahead, agile despite the adrenaline shaking her limbs. You can barely keep up, but she never looks back, only when the tree line breaks. Do you stop? You're both panting, mud-spattered, shaking. A live dot, she leads you into a hollow behind a thicket of blackberry vines, nearly invisible unless you know it's there. Inside is a narrow cave, low-roofed and musty. A small fire pit has been dug into the floor. Around the edges lie sacks of grain, folded cloth, and a few water skins, provisions. Someone's been planning. Jack is already there. He looks up, sees Marta, and drops the bread he's holding. Gods you. He rushes to her, nearly trips, catches her by the shoulders. We thought. She's fine, you manage to say, finally catching your breath. The scaffold misfired. Jack's eyes shift to you. His mouth opens to question. Then he closes it. Marta looks at you. He loosened the catch bolt. Jack lets out a low whistle. You sit down heavily on a bundle of hay. Your legs finally give out. For a moment, no one speaks. Then Marta crouches in front of you. We don't have much time. By now they know I'm gone. And you nod. I've seen the bailiff when he's angry. I don't expect a trial. Jack hands you a water skin. You didn't have to do it. You could have walked away. I already didn't. That was the problem. You drink. The water is warm and tastes like old leather, but it grounds you. Reminds you you're not in the square anymore. You'll need to leave town, Marta says. Tonight, I figured. But before you go, she adds, we have something else. She reaches into the shadows and pulls out a bundle wrapped in cloth. She opens it, slowly revealing a set of folded maps. Small parchments covered in shorthand symbols and a key. These are from Clovis, she says. He didn't just write names. He tracked where things moved. People, money, guards. And there's something else. He found a place. Jack leans in. He called it the ledger vault. Hidden room beneath the steward's office. Records of every judgment, real or fabricated. Proof. You run your hand over the map. How far? Half a day's ride, Marta says. East. Through the vineyards. It's in a collapsed chapel. You look at her. And you want me to go get it? No, she says. I want you to decide what comes next. You're not just the assistant anymore. You understand the machine now. That's rare. And dangerous. You let the words hang in the air. It's true. You've touched every part of it. Rope, blade, record, blood. You know how it operates when it's loud, when it's quiet, when it wants to be seen, and when it hides. And now, for the first time, it's looking for you. I'll go, you say. Marta nods. Good, then let's get you ready. The next few hours pass in a flurry. You swap your apprentice cloak for one that isn't stained with iron and vinegar. You eat half a loaf of bread, chew dried meat until your jaw aches. Marta sketches a smaller version of the map for your pocket. You bury the executioner's token, the brass ring you were given when you became assistant, beneath a flat stone at the cave's entrance. You mark the spot with a single line of charcoal. Let them find it. Let them guess. Before you leave, Jack hands you something else. A quill. Just the quill. Clovis said paper doesn't change anything unless someone uses it. Maybe it's your turn. You don't trust your voice, so you nod. You step out of the cave just as dusk settles across the treetops. The sky burns orange and bruised, like it's been watching the scaffold. Marta walks you to the edge of the clearing. If you find it, she says, don't bring it back here. I know. Bring it where it hurts. You pull your cloak tighter, adjust the pack across your shoulder, and start walking east. The trees close behind you. Each step feels heavier, but not from fear. From purpose. You're not just running anymore. You're delivering. Somewhere beneath a forgotten chapel, a ledger waits. Inside it, truth sleeps like a blade waiting to be sharpened. And this time, you'll be the one who swings it. The road east is no road at all. It starts as a dirt path, barely wide enough for a wheelbarrow, then narrows into a root-tangled trail through orchards gone wild. Apple trees sag under the weight of fruit that's never picked, and underbrush crowds your knees with every step. You duck low beneath a fallen beam and keep moving. The journal rests in your pack. Not just Clovis's anymore, yours too. The pages bear his ink and your sweat, his lists, your observations. Two hands writing from the same side of the rope. Distant church bells toll from the town behind you, not for mass. For search. They've found Marta gone, and they'll know you ran with her. You push faster. As dusk turns to night, you pass through a vineyard long abandoned, its rows tangled like stories half told. A raven watches from a trellis, unblinking. You speak to it without stopping. I'm not prey. Not tonight. The bird cocks its head. Doesn't fly. You reach the chapel ruins just past midnight. It's little more than a husk, stone bones and ivy-veined ribs. Roof caved in long ago. The air smells of ash and sage. Someone's left offerings here. Dried flowers, a cracked rosary, the stub of a candle burned to nothing. You step inside carefully. Each footfall echoes across stone tiles, smudged with time. Clovis's notes say, the entrance to the ledger vault lies beneath the altar. You find what's left of it, half buried in debris. Its base scorched but still upright. You kneel not to pray, but to feel. Loose mortar. A shift in stone. There. You pry at the tile with your belt knife. It scrapes, gives way, then lifts with a hollow groan. Beneath it, stairs. You stare for a moment, then descend. The air thickens with each step, dry and close, like pages that haven't been turned in decades. Your boots scuff dust into the silence. Then, a door. Iron bound, locked, but the journal included a key. Your fingers find it quickly. You fit it into the lock. Click. You push. The vault smells of ink and wax and mildew. The room is small, maybe 6 strides wide, with shelves carved directly into the stone. Scrolls, ledgers, folded vellum tied in red ribbon. Dust cloaks everything. But Clovis was right. The records are here. You light a stub of candle from your pack and begin to scan titles, names, codes, transactions. At first it's dry. Then the pattern emerges. You see a name on a list of pardons twice. A man who confessed to stabbing a god, but had his charges erased. Why? Next to the name, payment received. 4 oxen, 2 barrels ale, 1 daughter. You swallow. Another scroll. Executions. The charges read like a bad play. Seditious behavior, theft of grain, defacing property, insulting the tax steward's hat. And beside them, quiet annotations. Witness recanted. Property seized post-execution. Confession unsigned. The records go back years. Dozens, hundreds of names. And each one chosen. Not for crime, but for silence, for convenience, for profit. You find one more ledger. Heavy, cracked leather. Bound tight. Inside, the master account. Names of every town official. Next to each, a tally. Giles's name is there. Next to his. Executioner's stipend tripled following cooperation. Your stomach turns. You find your name, too. not written fully. Just assistant, useful, observant, watch. You freeze. They knew. They knew you were watching, even before you did. The candle guttered halfway down. You breathe slowly. Then you gather what you need. You don't take everything. That would be obvious. But you take enough 3 scrolls, 2 ledgers, and a copy of the pardon registry. You wrap them in cloth, tie them tight, and tuck them into your pack with the journal. You close the vault door gently. Fit the tile back over the stair. No sign you were ever here. You step out into the ruins just as the first birds call from the trees. Your hands shake, not from fear, but from knowing what you carry. You carry proof. You sit at the edge of the broken altar and let the sky lighten slowly. You will not return to town. You will go further east. There are villages, there towns, where stories spread like fire. Places with scribes, messengers, smugglers who know how to make documents vanish into noble hands. Because this isn't just about revenge. This is about memory. You pull the journal from your pack. Open to a blank page. You write, the assistant. Step down from the scaffold. Then, beneath it, and started to build a new one. Not for death, for truth. The birds keep singing, the light keeps rising, and you keep writing, because someone has to. You travel by shadow. The pack on your back weighs more than it should. Not just because of the scrolls and the ledgers, but because of what they mean. It's the weight of other people's truth, some long buried, some freshly stained, and it pulls at your shoulders like chains. But you don't stop. Each village you pass, you say nothing. You keep your hood low. You buy only what you need: bread, dry cheese, a rag to replace the one soaked in candle wax. You're just a traveler, another forgettable shadow on the road. A former apprentice looking for work. That's the story you feed them, and they eat it up. Because no one ever suspects the quiet ones who sweep behind the curtain. But you listen. Everywhere you go, the whispers are louder now. They say a girl escaped the scaffold. Executioner's assistant vanished. Records stolen from the bailiff's hall. They say it wasn't even a crime, just silence too loud to ignore. They say someone's writing it all down. You don't smile when you hear that one. You just walk faster. In a town called Velro, you find a scribe willing to transcribe your documents for coin and anonymity. You pay him with a brooch you found in the ledger vault. It once belonged to a baroness. The bailiff likely took it after he took her land. You want copies? He asks. No, just clarity. He works silently. His eyes widen only once at the ledger margins, where Clovis scribbled charges that didn't match deaths. Who wrote this? The scribe asks. A friend, you say. He doesn't ask again. You leave that town before dawn. The copies in your pack, wrapped in oilcloth. The originals? Buried behind the chapel ruins where only you and the ghosts will remember. From there, you follow the rivers east. Every village has a story. Every inn whispers something. Every market carries fear like a stink only you can smell. And then, finally, a name surfaces. Creswick. A city 3 days' walk beyond the valley, ruled by a governor said to despise the northern towns. A place with its own court, its own scribes, its own corruptions, but different ones. Ones that hate competition. You head for Creswick, because the enemy of your enemy might read. The roads narrow, the trees thin, your food runs low. You pass. A corpse swinging in a tree hung by outlaws or by law. You're not sure which anymore. The birds don't seem to care. One night, you make camp beneath a stone bridge. You light no fire. Just stare at the stars. The journal is in your lap. You open to a new page. Entry 117. Observations while hunted. You begin to write. Not facts this time, but reflections. About fear. About choices. About how easy it is to wash the blood away if you never stop to ask whose it was. You sketch the scaffold from memory. But now it's upside down. the blade buried in earth, the rope fraying from above. You draw yourself walking away. You fall asleep that night with the quill still in your hand. In Creswick, the walls rise high and hard. Guards wear polished metal and expressions sharper than any axe. You hide the documents in layers. You walk like someone with nothing to lose. The market buzzes louder here. There are books, printed pamphlets. You find a man selling copies of confessions. Real or imagined, you buy one, you read it, and you realize they already know the power of ink. Now you do too. You ask for the name of a printer who doesn't ask questions. You're sent to a cellar behind a butcher's stall. The air there smells of ink and salt. You meet a woman with gray hair and black hands who eyes your scrolls like they're flint in a powder room. These real? Yes. You understand what printing this will do? You nod. You understand what it won't do? You nod again. She takes them. Come back in a week. You don't ask for a price. You just thank her. That night, you walk along the canal. You see your reflection in the water. Same eyes. Same hair, but not the same boy who tied the rope. That boy followed orders. This one broke them. That boy cleaned the block. This one dirtied the record. You sit on the dock and pull out the candle. Wax figurine, now a melted stump. You light it one last time. The flame dances low, flickers once, and steadies. You watch it burn, not for light, but for memory, because you don't want to forget what started this, or what it cost. And when it's gone, you gather the wax, press it into your palm, and leave it there, a scar shaped like a lantern. The week drags like an iron chain behind your ankles. You stay in a boarding house on the quieter side of Creswick, where the beds creak and the windows whistle even when closed. The matron doesn't ask questions. She only asks for coin and for you to mop up after yourself if you bleed. It's not the worst deal you've had lately. You spend your days walking through alleys, over bridges, down lanes filled with charcoal smoke and roasted fish. You count bakeries. You listen to children's songs. You buy a scarf to hide your face and a copy of a poem written by someone who once believed in justice. Mostly. Though you wait. You don't check the printer's cellar until the 7th day. When you push open the back door, she's already expecting you. You'll want to sit. She says. You don't sit. She lays the stack down on the table like it's still warm from the press. A neat pile, 34 pages, bound with rough twine. The title burns like a whisper made loud. The Hidden Ropes. A record of fabricated justice in the northern townships. She opens to the first page. Your words. Clovis's notations. Marta's name, clean and free. Diagrams of the scaffold mechanism. Lists of fabricated charges. The double pardon man. The Baroness's brooch. I added chapter headings, the printer says casually. Makes it easier for the pamphleteers. You nod, throat dry. And the ending? She asks. That was. You? You know what she means. The closing paragraph, handwritten and now etched into ink. Let it be known that the rope does not ask questions, but the hands behind it always know. You did write that in a moment of anger. Or maybe clarity. They're the same thing now. She eyes you carefully. We're distributing 500 copies. You blink. That many? Already out. Taverns, academies, post carriages. A few made it into the governor's council room before lunch. You steady yourself against the wall. She softens. You? All right. You nod. Just didn't expect it to be real. She smiles. The truth rarely is. Not at first. That night, the city feels different. Not louder. Not calmer. Sharper. Like everyone's ears are suddenly listening, waiting for the drop of a single coin on stone. You pass a bookseller whispering, "Have you seen it yet?" to a cloaked woman holding a sugar plum. A stable boy recites a passage to his mule. Two guards argue whether the pamphlet is dangerous or just clever. You don't speak. You just listen. And then, near the canal, you hear the name. Clovis. You stop. The speaker is an older man, dressed like a merchant, but missing the usual smugness. He's talking to a group of young apprentices near a shuttered wine stall. They say he was an executioner's apprentice. The man says, learned too much, hid the ledgers, fled. They say he's still alive. You keep walking, because he is not at the inn that evening. You sit by the fire and draw the scaffold again, but this time it's dismantled. The wood stacked like a funeral pyre. The rope cut at both ends. You write below it, let memory do the work of punishment. You fall asleep to the sound of boots passing outside. You dream of ringing bells and papers fluttering from windows. The P. Next morning, you find a copy nailed to the city gate. Not by you. Someone else did it. The rope you helped tie is now unraveling. And it's not just one person pulling. You return to the printer, breathless. They're quoting it, you say. No, she replies. One man asked if I had it in Latin. You both laugh, tired, disbelieving laughter that doesn't need to last long to mean everything. You hand her one. More parchment. It's not a confession. It's not a ledger. It's a story. Yours. She reads. The title aloud. The assistant. No ending? She asks. Not yet, you say. She nods. Already turning to the press. There are still more copies to make, and maybe, just maybe, more rope to burn. A week passes. Then another. Creswick does not fall apart. It does not erupt in protest. The governor is not overthrown. The bailiff's manor does not go up in flames. Instead, almost disappointingly, it shifts. Subtle things first. The baker stops giving discounts to guards. The butcher refuses to supply the constable's wife unless she pays in full. A teacher at the local parish reads passages aloud from the hidden ropes before dismissing his students. No one tells him to stop. At first, you're disappointed. You wanted revolution. A storm. Thunderclaps and tumbling regimes. But then, on your third visit to the square, you see it. A group of boys playing executioner. One ties up another. The others chant mock charges. But this time, when the executioner raises an invisible axe, one boy shouts, "Wait, show me the real crime." And the game ends. They laugh, sure, but they walk away from the rope. You don't smile. But your heart does. One evening, you meet the printer again. She brings wine. You bring silence. It's enough. You ever going back? She asks. To where? You say, though you both know. She shrugs. Not to the scaffold. But to where? It started. You shake your head. I don't think that place is there anymore. Or maybe you aren't. You don't answer. Instead, you slide a folded sheet across the table. A new draft. A quieter one. Instructions for the successor. She reads the first few lines, nods, then tucks it into her apron. That night, you walk by the docks and toss a coin into the water, not for luck, but for release. A ritual you invent on the spot. You whisper, for those who never got to speak. The water doesn't answer, but it listens. News trickles in from the north. The bailiff has been reassigned. His home emptied. His ledgers gone. Giles vanished. Some say he fled east. Others say he stayed too long in a town with no patience. Left for secrets. A girl named Marta is rumored to have joined a traveling theater troupe, though no one knows for sure. Some say she performs under a false name, reenacting old crimes, playing the assistant who turns on the master. You hope it's true, because that version has a better ending. And if anyone earned a better ending, it's her. You write again. Another journal. This one not for secrecy, but legacy. You detail the scaffold's mechanics, the system, the abuses. You draw diagrams, write lists of questions future assistants should ask before lifting a blade. You end each chapter with a whisper of a warning. If it feels wrong, it probably is. It's not history yet, but it's close. You place the finished book beside the old journal in a lockbox, wrap it in cloth, and mail it to a town you'll never visit, addressed only to the next assistant. Will they read it? You hope so, but Even if they don't, you did your part. Sometimes, survival isn't about escape. It's about passing the torch. Or in your case, blowing out the candle and handing over the match. A year from now, someone will tell a story about a boy who vanished from the gallows and reappeared as a whisper in the walls of justice. You won't correct them, because some stories need to grow. Wild to survive. And sometimes, the truest history is the one no one can prove. You stretch your arms at sunrise. The city is already stirring, and so are you. By now, you know the rhythm of cities. Morning carts clattering over cobbles. Stall owners calling out their wares before their voices warm up. Pigeons pretending they've lived here longer than anyone. You blend in. You've gotten good at that. But there's something else in the air today. Not quite fear. Not exactly hope. A kind of expectancy. Because yesterday, a town crier read aloud from the hidden ropes in the governor's square. It wasn't planned. Not by you. He just did it. And no one stopped him. Even the guards leaned in, pretending to inspect their bootlaces while he read. The assistant does not choose the sentence, but they choose whether to follow it blindly. You watched from the back of the crowd, cloak drawn, eyes forward. No one looked at you. No one needed to. You weren't the story anymore. You were the seed, and you could feel it rooting in the cracks of old stone. The printer meets you that night. She brings you a small leather SATCHEL. Inside, 5 bound booklets. Slightly smaller, smoother pages. Condensed version, she says, for those who read with their hands. You understand. For the blind. For the young. For the scared. You don't say thank you. You just press your forehead to hers and breathe. This city, it's not perfect. The courts still favor the rich. The prisons still overflow. The gallows still creak when the wind's too strong. But the words have changed. Now, before each sentence, a clerk is required to check a new list. One you drafted. It's not law. Not officially. But the judge in Ward 7 uses a. And the academy teaches it to its students. And someone somewhere is keeping count of how many times it saves someone instead of condemns them. You see your own handwriting on a flyer pasted to a tavern door. Not all silence is guilt. The tavern sells watered wine, but the words? Pure. You start visiting places in disguise. The Western Quarter, where tailors gossip more efficiently than scribes. The Riverside, where dockhands have opinions as sharp as cleavers. The Chapel District, where even priests quote from your passages when sermons get too quiet. You become a ghost with a purpose, a myth on foot. One night, you see a group of students perform a street play. It's crude. A scaffold made from crates. A hooded man in a wool sack. But the script, it's familiar. Lines lifted from your journal, paraphrased, reclaimed. When the assistant refuses to tie the knot, the crowd cheers. You leave before the final bow, because you're not looking for applause. You're looking for the moment after. When they walk away talking. You return home, such as it is to a letter left at your door. No name. No seal. Inside, a single line. You helped me speak again. That's it. But your hands shake for an hour afterward, because it means someone heard. Maybe Marta. Maybe someone you'll never meet. Doesn't matter. It reached. You sleep that night. DREMLESS. Not because you've forgotten, but because for once you don't need to remember everything. The nightmares have stepped aside, just for a while. To let in something softer. Autumn creeps into Creswick like a kindly old gossip. Cool breath in the windows, golden leaves on the cobbles, and news in every cup of tea. You start carrying gloves, not because you're cold, but because too many people are starting to recognize the scar on your palm, the one shaped like a melted lantern. They never said what it means, but it says plenty on its own. The printer begins referring to you, half jokingly, as the assistant emeritus. You pretend to hate it. You don single quotes T. She says, we're thinking of putting out a second edition. Clean up the grammar. Add footnotes. You raise an eyebrow. Footnotes? Yeah, she grins. The revolution needs proper formatting. You don't say no. You help where you can. Quietly, you write letters to towns you once passed through, places where silence still rules the gallows. You enclose folded pages from the hidden ropes. Bundled in twine, you sign each one, from someone who used to obey. One reply comes back, from a judge. Short, precise. Your words weigh more than a verdict. I'm listening. You show it to no one. You just keep it in your coat pocket. Folded so tight, the crease nearly splits the ink. Another message finds you, chalked on a brick wall near the university. No blade cuts like a conscience. You didn't write it, but you wish you had. Creswick keeps shifting. A clerk is dismissed for falsifying charges. Guard is put on trial for threatening a witness. An execution is delayed after a citizen submits an anonymous affidavit backed by a passage from your book. You hear the details secondhand, but you know the fingerprints. One night, you return to the cellar press, where the printer has left something on your stool. A single-page leaflet, fresh ink. Smells like truth. You read the title, The Assistant's Candle. No byline, just a story. Yours. Condensed. Anonymous. Clean. It ends with a question. Would you have tied the knot? The rest of the page is blank. You sit there a long time, because you know what that blank space is. It's the reader's turn. The next morning, copies of The Assistant's Candle appear on bakery counters, under church pews, folded into carriage seats, even slipped between the pages of prayer books. And suddenly, everyone is asking questions. Not just about the executions, but about who ordered them. Who profited. Who watched. And who stayed quiet. One merchant posts the leaflet on his shop door with the caption, "No more knots." You see it as you walk by and gently touch the edge before moving on. That night, the printer finds you on your usual bench, near the lamplight curve by the canal. She hands you a sealed letter. No return address. You recognize the handwriting instantly. Marta. Inside. You were right. We were never just witnesses, but now I'm on stage, and people are listening. I don't flinch anymore. I raise my voice. Thought you should know. You reread it until the ink feels warm. And then you tuck it in your journal. Not to hide it. To keep it. Because sometimes a revolution doesn't need fire or swords or angry mobs. Sometimes it just needs someone to ask, but what if we don't do it this way anymore? And someone else to answer, then let's try something better. You wake to fog. Not the cold kind that stings your cheeks, but the thick, sleep-like kind that makes even bells sound muffled. A perfect morning for forgetting things, or remembering them softly. You walk your usual route, slow and deliberate. The lanterns are still lit along the alley walls, the cobblestones damp with dew. A woman sweeps her doorstep in silence, and you nod to her. She doesn't nod back, but she watches you pass, eyes lingering just a bit too long. You've been recognized, more and more lately, not as a criminal, not as a hero. As something else. A sign. Someone spots you and whispers, "He's the reason they paused the trials in Westerbank." You're not. But you also didn't stop it from being said. This morning, you carry with you a folded cloth bundle. Inside, the last remaining copy of your original, unedited journal. The one with the frayed ribbon, the tea stains, and the margin note that simply reads, "Never again." It doesn't belong in your hands anymore. You bring it to the city library. Quiet stone building nestled between two taverns and a chapel, as if it's mediating their arguments. You hand it to the clerk behind the desk. Her spectacles are lopsided. Her smile is not. "For donation?" She asks. "For someone who needs it," you say. She nods, gently brushing dust from the cover like it's something sacred. And it is. Not because it's true, though it is, but because it helped you live with the truth. That night, a boy in a green cloak stops you near the mill road. He can't be more than 10. You wrote the rope book, didn't you? You don't answer. He keeps walking beside you. My brother says it's fake, but I don't think it is, 'cause it made me feel weird, like mad and sad and smart all at once. You glance down at him. That sounds like truth. He grins. That's what I thought. He skips away before you can say anything else. The next evening, at a debate in the Crescent Hall, two councilmen argue over whether executioners should be required to receive moral training. The room actually laughs, but not because it's silly, because someone finally said it out loud. You sit in the back row. You don't speak. But when someone quotes the line about the not knowing no justice, the hall goes still. Even the chandeliers seem to hold their breath. Later, a law student hands you a folded pamphlet with a wink. It's titled, "The Ethics of Obedience." When following orders isn't enough, it quotes you 8 times. One quote is bolded. "A clean rope doesn't clean the hands that tied it." You almost laugh. Instead, you whisper, "Good luck," because that student's going to need it. You begin hearing rumors. That other cities are forming rope circles, discussion groups where people read and dissect the hidden ropes. Like scripture, that a governor's assistant in the South was fired after refusing to sign off on a death warrant, citing the assistant's doctrine. That someone drew a scaffold on the town square in chalk, then crossed it out and wrote, "Not today." No one admits to it, but everyone smiles when they pass it. In the quiet of your rented room, you light a candle. Not for light, for memory, and maybe for mourning. Not for who you were, but for how close you came to never becoming this. You write one final entry in a new journal. Truth doesn't ring like a bell. It hums like tension in rope, and one day you feel it snap. You set the journal aside. You won't mail this one. It's not for the next assistant. It's for you. Because even now, with the scaffold far behind, the past doesn't vanish. It just becomes quieter. And you're learning to live with quiet. The wind has changed. You notice it not in the way leaves scatter or cloaks flap, but in the conversations, the way people talk more boldly near open windows, the way no one lowers their voice when discussing the trials. A merchant scoffs at the word guilt. A midwife quotes the assistant's candle while swaddling a child. Even a dog barks more confidently, though you suspect that's unrelated. You find yourself wandering farther from your usual haunts. Not out of fear, just curiosity. Like a tree testing its roots in new soil. One afternoon, you visit the outer ward, a rougher part of town, where brick dust lines your boots and children make gallows out of sticks still, but with different rules. You pause when you hear, "No rope today." You've got to prove it first. They're playing justice, but this time, they're playing it right. Back at the press, the printer is beaming. She's been asked to speak at the university. Topic, publishing as protest. You offer to walk her there. She rolls her eyes. "I'm not ancient." But when you show up anyway, she doesn't send you away. The auditorium is packed. Students in rumpled robes. Scholars with ink on their sleeves. Even a few clergy in the back, pretending not to be interested. She starts with a story yours, though she never names you. Then she holds up the hidden ropes. "This isn't a book," she says. "It's a mirror." The room goes still. She continues. "It doesn't tell you what to do. It shows you what you're already part of, and if that reflection makes you uncomfortable, good." You watch as hands go up. Not to challenge her. To thank her. Later, she finds you beneath the old clock tower. "I didn't say your name," she says. "But they knew." You nod. "Good." She pulls out a scrap of parchment. They want to translate it into 4 languages. You blink. "Why?" She smiles. "Because gallows are multilingual." You laugh out loud. For the first time in months, that night, you visit the old square where the scaffold once stood. It's gone now. Dismantled. The platform stones lifted. Replaced by benches and a fountain poorly plumbed, but charming. Someone's painted a line where the rope once hung. Above it, a plaque reads, Here stood silence. Now stands choice. You sit there until the stars come out, and for the first time, the space feels clean. No echoes. No ghosts. Just space. One morning, you receive a letter from the capital. Official seal. Impressive script. You open it cautiously. Inside, your materials have been reviewed. The ministry is interested in implementing your framework as part of a new justice curriculum. A representative will arrive in Creswick next month to discuss next steps. You read it 3 times, then burn it, not out of spite. Out of timing. Because what you started doesn't need ministry approval. It's already begun. In whispered debates. In children's games. In chalk-drawn scaffolds crossed out with laughter. You're not against reform. You're just done waiting for permission. So instead, you write a new guide. Shorter. Simpler. How to listen when the system is whispering. And on the first page, you don't have to be brave, just awake, and maybe a little stubborn. You're invited to speak at a school, not a university, not a lecture hall, just a modest grammar school tucked behind a bakery that smells like burnt honey and hope. You hesitate. You're not a teacher. You're barely comfortable being visible, but the headmistress is insistent. The children have questions, she writes. They deserve answers from someone who's asked them too. So one morning, you go. You wear gloves, a long coat. You bring nothing but a folded paper with 3 lines written in your own ink. The classroom is bright and mismatched. Some desks wobble. One child wears a crown made of twine. Another is pretending their inkpot is a dragon. You're asked to sit in the middle, not in front. You like that. The first question is simple. Why did you follow orders if you didn't want to? You inhale slowly, then reply, because I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. They nod like they understand, because they do. Fear is a childhood fluency. Another child raises a hand. Did you cry? This one surprises you. You want to lie. Instead, you say yes, but only afterward. A boy near the back asks, did they say sorry? You answer honestly, not yet. They give you drawings afterward. Stick figure executioners laying down. They're ropes, little girls with books instead of blindfolds. One drawing shows a scaffold with wings, flying away into the clouds. You keep that one. That evening, you find yourself sketching in the margins of your new notebook. Not words, just shapes, loops and knots, some untied, some never tied at all. You begin drafting your next project. It's not a book, not a pamphlet. It's a play for children. Title, The Knot That Never Was. It tells the story of a rope that dreamed of becoming something else, a ladder, a swing, a bridge. You read an early draft to the printer. She tears up at the line. A rope can hold you back or hold you up. You're not sure if it's good, but you know it's needed. The stories begin reaching places you've never been. A port town sends a request for 50 copies. A traveling puppeteer performs your words to crowds who don't read but always listen. One day, you receive a small wooden carving in the mail. It's a hand, palm open, holding a coiled rope shaped like a heart. No note. You place it on your shelf beside the old matchbox Marta once gave you. The revolution, it turns out, is quieter than you expected. Not banners, not anthems, just ripples. And sometimes those ripples return. A letter arrives from the eastern provinces. A former assistant, newly resigned. Your book found me just in time. I didn't tie the knot. I walked away. Thank you for walking first. You sit with the letter a long while. Then you walk to the edge of town, where the river meets the trees. You tie a small ribbon around a branch, not to mark territory. To let someone know you're not alone here. You've started leaving ribbons. Wherever you go, now. Just a small thing. Just in case, because someone once left one for you too. One night, a soft knock at your door startles you from sleep. Not urgent, just timed. You light a candle and open it. She's there. Marta. Older. Yes, but taller somehow. Not in height, but in weight. Like someone who knows what her words can do. Now, you say nothing. She steps in. You close the door behind her. I was passing through, she offers. You nod. And I was waiting. You sit at the small table where your quill still rests beside a page of half-thoughts. She picks it up, reads, then says, "Your metaphors are still terrible." You both laugh. She's here on official business. It turns out, sent to observe the implementation of non-lethal reforms. The phrasing makes her wince, but she's part of it now. She's in the room when decisions are made. I still hate the phrase humane justice, she mutters. But I'd rather fight inside the gate than shout from the field. You nod and win. She smiles, tired. Sometimes. You talk for hours, over tea, over memory, over silence. And eventually, over forgiveness. Not the dramatic kind. The kind you don't announce. The kind you live. She asks if you ever visit the grave of the old executioner. You shake your head. I used to. Then, after a long pause, I think he knew. Marta doesn't answer. She doesn't have to. Before she leaves, she hands you a sealed packet. Inside, new drafts of policy. Language you once dreamed of seeing. Repeals, reviews, alternative sentencing structures. Required psychological training. Trauma support. At the bottom of one page, scrawled in the margin. Inspired by internal documentation, the hidden ropes. You exhale so deeply you think your lungs might never rise again. She leaves at dawn. Doesn't say goodbye. Just next time I pass through, I want to see the play. You promise she will. You spend that afternoon reworking the final scene of the knot that never was. Instead of the rope flying away, it becomes a vine growing and curling and wrapping around an old scaffold, turning it into a garden trellis. You write a line that makes your hands shake. Even what was built to hold death can learn to hold life. Children in town rehearse it now. They use fabric ropes, painted green. They hum a little tune before each scene change. No one tells them to, they just do. Someone starts calling them the ribbon troop. One day, you pass by and hear a child whisper to another, "That's him. The one who made the rope kind." You don't correct them, because maybe that's true, too. That night, you light the candle again, the same one that burned when you first wrote the words that set all this in motion. You let it burn all the way down. Then you write a final sentence in your journal. Rope does not remember the hand that held it, but the world remembers the hand that let it go. The morning arrives slow, like an old friend who no longer needs to knock. The sun stretches across your floorboard in stripes, lighting the edges of the journal on your desk, the one with frayed corners, smudged ink, and stories that used to ache more than they soothe. Today, they soothe. You take your time rising. No urgency, no task waiting in town square. The scaffold is long gone. The rope rests in memories now, not in hands. And even then, it feels softer. You pass the baker's shop. He nods. Heard they quoted you again in the council minutes. You grin. Which part? He shrugs. Does it matter? You suppose it. DOES in single quotes. Tie. In the tavern, someone has painted your words across the back wall. Let silence mean safety, not fear. They've misspelled silence. You don't tell them. Outside the schoolhouse, two children tie ribbons around fence posts. They're not part of any play, not part of any campaign. They're just decorating. You don't ask where they got the idea. You already know. You walk the forest path again, the one you first stumbled down all those years ago, when the weight of obedience still pressed against your spine and you didn't know how to breathe without a command. The trees are taller now, or maybe you just see more sky. The old branch still holds your ribbon. Faded, frayed, but there, a marker of who you were. A whisper to whoever walks behind you. You're not the first. You tie another ribbon beside the first. This one, red dot, it doesn't symbolize blood. It symbolizes choice. You sit on a stump nearby, watching wind thread itself through leaves. Your hands rest on your knees, steady now. Fingers that once trembled before each name on the list now move with the ease of someone who's written their own. From your satchel, you pull a final copy of the play. You've decided to send it to the Capitol. Not for approval, not for publication. Just to remind them that not every lesson begins in a hall with scrolls and seals. Some begin in fear, some in resistance, some in children's voices playing rope into song. You lean back and close your eyes. You hear laughter on the wind, real or remembered. You're not sure. It doesn't matter. The world has changed, not loudly, not suddenly, but like a knot loosening beneath gentle fingers. And you changed with it. You let go. You survived. You made peace with the rope. Now it's time to rest. The sky dims softly now, as if the world itself has decided to whisper. The candlelight fades, the breeze grows gentler, and the story, your story, reaches its quietest note. You've walked roads most would never tread, felt the weight of duty press like stone on your chest, heard the creak of the gallows and the quiet between your thoughts. But you also let light back in ribbons, in children's laughter, in books that told truths when laws could not. The rope no longer pulls at your conscience. The shadow no longer clings to your name. You've seen how silence can shift from something that hides fear to something that holds peace. And now, as the final echoes of footsteps fade into the soft hum of a resting world, you sit still, not because there's nothing left to do, but because for the first time, you don't have to do it. You've done enough. You've told the story. You've untied the knot. And in that quiet, you find something deeper than sleep. You find stillness. So go ahead. Let your thoughts drift like ash on a windless night. Let the last flicker of candlelight melt into the hush. Let the hush carry you, not away, but inward, into the soft, slow dark where nothing is urgent and everything is safe. Close your eyes. You're home now.